Hi, folks. We are coming to you live from Dark Shadow Ghost Tours After Tour, Gettysburg Edition.
2015.
My name is Sean.
My name's Mike.
And I'm Marianne. Welcome.
So this is going to be a live broadcast tonight. I want to go over some of the things since we are broadcasting live. We might have some technical difficulties. We might have some things that just kind of go bump in the night, but that's par for the course here for Dark Shadow Ghost Tours. Nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Anyways, tonight's show, we're going to be discussing some of the things that we found when we were on our trip to Gettysburg. The whole team went out, the core team went out to Gettysburg. We left on June 24th, and we were out there for 5 days of fun, sun, investigations, and all kinds of things going on. So tonight we're going to be discussing some of our findings. We went over our evidence, but I do want to warn you and give you a little heads up. We have 5 days of stuff that everybody's going through, so we don't have everything together yet. We might have to have a wrap-up 2 show later on if we find some more stuff. But,
a sequel?
Yeah, we might have to have a sequel to this.
Woohoo!
So also, since this is a live broadcast, there's going to be some times where I say, okay, watch this video or things like that. Unfortunately, with the way we're broadcasting, we can't play videos too well. If you just witnessed our intro, you notice that they don't come over the Hangout too good. But one thing that we did do, if you look at the bottom right of the page, there are links to these videos and some of the EVPs that we're going to be talking about. And but if I say watch this video, that means to go down and go ahead and click on the link and watch it yourself. That's for editing purposes, because later on we're going to take this broadcast and actually plug in the videos and EVPs, and so we'll have a nice little wrap-up show. So you guys ready to get rolling?
Sure.
Oh, bring it on.
All righty. Let me just take one quick break. How are we doing on audio? The audio coming through good?
Yes, it is.
All right. We got a new microphone, so we had to test that out. All right. So, like I said, the core team traveled to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. There were 10 of us that were on the trip, and we stayed in a 1900s era farmhouse. So the farmhouse wasn't there during the Battle of Gettysburg. However, it is pretty closely located to Eastern Cavalry Cemetery, which means the fields were actually battlefield. And we had a theory there was probably soldiers and fights right where we were staying. So we're going to talk about it, one of the last segments of the show where we actually did a live investigation from the farmhouse where we stayed. And that video is on our YouTube channel. You can check it out. And that's was one of our live virtual ghost hunts. It was pretty cool. So, but the whole time we were there, I'm going to go over the list of some of the things that we did. We went to Sachs Bridge, Soldiers National Cemetery, Evergreen Cemetery. We did an investigation at the Homestead Orphanage. We did an investigation at the Jenny Wade House. We went to Devil's Den, Little Round Top. The girls went shopping out in the hurricane.
It wasn't a real hurricane, just a lot of rain.
We visited the train station where Abraham Lincoln came in. We went up to the railroad cut. We went to the Eternal Light Peace Monument, which was very cool. We saw a battle reenactment. We investigated the farmhouse, and then after the core team come back, Marianne and I investigated the Farnsworth house. So we did a lot of stuff, lots of stuff.
Yes.
In a short amount of time.
In reality, I say 5 days. One of those days was travel. So. And
one of those days was a rain day, and we didn't really do anything except we kind of went to a scrapbooking store in the rain.
I have in my notes Typhoon Girl Shopping. So, but overall, what did you guys think of the trip?
I loved it.
It was great. I mean, how could you not be impressed with just the pure history and the sense of awe you get looking at all the monuments and just knowing everything that took place there. I mean, how could you I know one thing. I'm just glad that we didn't try to do it in like a little weekend trip. That would have been impossible.
And the amount of stuff, the list I read off,
It's nothing.
it's nothing. There's tons more, which I think we need to go back.
Oh, at least for the food.
Food was awesome. So what we're going to do for the show is we're going to go chronological order, basically.
Okay.
And
Sounds
we're going to, we have some other shows. We broadcast live from Gettysburg, and we told you some of the personal feelings and things that we had, experiences that we did during the day. But we didn't have any pictures. We didn't have any evidence and that kind of stuff. So tonight we have pictures. Let's talk about day one. Getting together. We left Dark Shadow goes towards headquarters here in Youngstown, Ohio. Early. And we traveled down to Divine Paranormal headquarters down in East Palestine. And
we did.
And
met up with the rest of the crew.
Met up. Everybody got together. Let me flip over and show some of these pictures here. Oh, wrong mouse. So this is in East Palestine where we're getting together to go. All right, hold on one second. We got a little technical difficulty. Is there something wrong with the video?
No, we're good.
We're good?
We're fine.
Oh yeah, we're gold.
We're gold? All right.
We're gold.
So here's a group picture of everybody. You guys could talk about this while I'm showing the pictures.
Oh.
This was my first time running towards the group after setting the timer for the camera, which became my thing for
There's
the
our first
rest stop.
Rest stop.
We tried to make sure we stopped at least once an hour, so nobody got stressed out.
Wait, let's go back to that.
Oh.
We had a little contest going on to see who could take the most amount of pictures. That's why you see Mike there carrying the camera. I think he
has one in the other hand too. I'm just saying.
Yeah, wasn't
Look
Lee
real close.
having a collection of porta potties?
Oh
Yes.
Lee took a picture of every porta john on the entire length of the turnpike.
The rules were it had to pertain to the trip. There was construction between here and there. Those pertained to us getting there. Pictures were snapped.
Yep.
This was our pilot.
This is your pilot
Captain
speaking.
Mike. We had our walkie-talkies. We had 3 different vehicles, so Mike
We
Let
kept
us through.
the tour interesting.
Now we had a little road bump along the way, so we just pulled over and had a picnic.
Yeah, why not?
Not a problem.
It was hilarious when the guy came by to check on us. We were like, we're having a picnic. You want to join us? Like, I've never seen that before.
Should I tell him why Mike had to be the lead car?
No,
I'll tell him anyways. We got a new vehicle, and first time in about 30 some years, I got a speeding ticket. Actually, coming back from the J.C. Thompson building when we were doing that broadcast, and so I had to watch my speed. So I said, "Mike, your lead car." So he was my throttle.
So he was pilot.
Yeah. So there's a picture of Glenn coming up on the tunnels. I think we were.
Yeah, and some of that road construction Lee was talking about. See the nice little barrels.
Now here we are pulling into where we actually stayed. That's the barn of the farmhouse there, and then this is a shot here. We're getting a little bit of delay, but
there we go.
There's a shot of the actual farmhouse. Very cool place.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time right there on that porch.
In fact, that live broadcast, one of them came from there.
Yes, the live broadcast we set up right out there.
The virtual hunt.
So I missed that porch. It was awesome.
Well, it was so relaxing to be able to sit there and have coffee and discuss the day's adventures and things that we were out exploring, and just great.
So this is a shot of the front of the house, and here's Command Central. So
this is where all the other broadcasts came from.
Right. So if you saw us doing our other live broadcast, or even if you tuned in to ParaX and listened to our radio show segment, The Haunted Spotlight, we were actually sitting right there where Mary Ann's standing, and that's where we did it from. So we turned the dining room into Command Central. We had all of our stuff.
Needless to say, we didn't have no meals on that table.
No, we didn't. We had them all on that porch.
That's right. Yep.
So there's a shot of the pond right behind the house. Here's another one. Mike, did you get out and do any fishing? I know I didn't. I know the boys were out there.
Yeah, the boys
did.
So that was traveling. We had a good time. Good time getting there, even once we got there. So we had to do something once we got checked in, picked our rooms out, and went over the place and everything. And
had hot dogs.
Had hot dogs. I don't have pictures of the hot dogs. We had a lot of hot dogs. So we decided we were going to go out that night and do an investigation. And
get started right away. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking over my notes here.
Headed for the bridge.
So we were going to go out to Sachs Bridge that night when we got there. And when we come back from break, we're going to talk about Sachs Bridge and everything. But overall, we talked about, there was a question that came in on our one segment. Why do you think it's haunted? But or there's a lot of activity in Gettysburg, and there's a lot of theories out there as to why and things of that nature. But I wanted to ask you guys, being there and experiencing what we experienced, why do you think that there's a lot of activity in Gettysburg? Oh, we'll start with Mike.
Oh, well, I'm always, short on opinions. To me, I think it's like a perfect storm, if you wish. You had all these young men, the average age, I think, was 26. And over the course of 3 days, you had so many horrific injuries, deaths. You had over 7,000 killed. You had almost another 30,000 maimed and mutilated, and heck, you had about another 11 or 12,000 that were just ended up being missing. Some of them are just blown to shreds. You can imagine all the agony and the suffering. I mean, even if you didn't die in the battlefield, they just cut off your broken parts with a bone saw, and they had no anesthetic. And then the place is situated on a huge limestone and granite deposit. I mean, and there's a lot of different views out there in the paranormal world, but a lot of people believe that kind of stone traps residual information, for lack of a better word. And so you have the limestone and the granite, which is going to capture and record energy. And then you have all the suffering from all these young men, the people in the town. That, to me, it's, you hate to call it a perfect storm because there damn sure wasn't anything perfect about it. Right. But, that's why I think the place is so.
Just a lot of things coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mary Ann, what do you think?
I think, a lot of the paranormal ideas are that, why are there ghosts in the first place? Why are there anything sticking around, unfinished business, died quickly when they didn't expect to, something traumatic. And I think that all of that pretty much happened here in there in Gettysburg. You had all of these young kids coming in and dying early. They shouldn't have necessarily died at that
Right.
time, you know? So you got that. You've got that they're dying in agony. You've got all the townspeople who are involved in all this too. This wasn't just out in a field somewhere. This was literally in people's homes, literally in their houses.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so much traumatic events that are happening all at once to everybody. And I think that plays the biggest role, I think.
And I think you guys both hit it on the head. I would just add to that the aftermath. Just, you know, almost everyone that we spoke to, they said out in the fields or in people's yards or whatever, there's still bodies. I mean, they're still unclean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so then you have graves that aren't interred or aren't marked or whatever. So you throw that on top of it. And then you have
All the unknowns.
all the
unknown
unknowns.
soldiers.
You have the movement of the graves when they did the National Cemetery where they were moving. They couldn't have got everything. You know, they couldn't have got it all together. It's just,
I mean, you know, you stop and you think the National Soldiers Cemetery is actually Cemetery Ridge.
Right.
A major battle fought right there.
Yeah.
I mean, so you had all these people, all these young guys falling right there. And, you know, and that cemetery is just for the Union. It's just for the Northern soldiers.
Yeah.
They tell you, well, you know, the Southern families came up and got theirs, but how many of their, how many of their bodies could they have found?
Right. Back then they didn't carry dog tags and
yeah.
things like that. So
They had to figure out who everybody was just by what they were carrying with them and what their you know, outfits were, you know, the buttons and.
All right. So my next question that I have for you guys, we went a lot of places. We did a lot of things, a lot of investigation, a lot of experience or experiments, things that we did. What do you think is the most active place that we experienced?
You first.
Me first. Okay, just one side note before I start on that, because while the thought hit me, you got to remember there was so much carnage during that battle that when General Robert E. Lee retreated from the battlefield and heading back south to Virginia, the line of wounded soldiers that followed in procession all the way back, the bodies and the wounded, it was 16 miles long. And, you know, you just try to picture how many people you can stack in a line 16 miles long. And these are the wounded and the dead that he was able to take with him, the people that are dying along the way. That hit me, so I just figured I'd.
Okay, that's fine.
Now,
Not a problem.
Now then, my most active spot, and I hate it when I got picked just one.
Just pick one.
Just pick one. You know, but it's like Lay's potato chips. You can never pick just one. But I would have to go as far as the activity that we received, just from the volume of activity that we received, and it being intelligent. I would have to go with the basement at the orphanage in Gettysburg. You know, we had a full conversation with someone and answering questions. And
well, don't give too much away. We're going to talk about that later.
Okay.
All right. There.
I think, like Mike, that there's a lot of activity at the orphanage, but mine, I'm going to say the Soldiers National Cemetery. And the reason I'm going to say the Soldiers National Cemetery is we didn't even go there to really investigate.
That's right.
And we didn't all have our recorders running. We didn't all have our recorders running the whole time. We did it in broad daylight with other people, you know, in the distance, you know, and
don't tell them what, because we're going to talk about it later.
for the time that we were there, that we actually did something where we
Mhm.
asked a question or anything, we got activity.
Yes.
And so for the short amount of time
I'm
and the
kicking
stuff we
myself.
got, I'm going to say that it's more active. And I can only imagine what it had been if we would have done things differently and done more investigation there, especially over by one of the unknown sections.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with Soldiers National Cemetery because we got activity when we weren't even planning on collecting any.
Okay. All right. Got one more question, and then we're going to take a break. Okay. All right. So besides digital recorders, because that's a given, any paranormal investigator should be walking around with a digital recorder all the time, like Mike here on. I did for a while at the National Cemetery, but I shut it off. If you were going to go to Gettysburg or recommend somebody else going to Gettysburg to investigate, what other piece of equipment would you recommend?
Okay, I guess I'll take this one. Just for the for paranormal, yeah, it's I have to say a camera, a digital camera. Yeah, for the sheer chance of getting something on film, but if nothing else, for the sheer history. I mean, the monuments, the battlefields, just everything, the buildings. I mean, my God, you have to be in awe of the place when you actually get there. And we even found Fred Flintstone's house, which we got pictures in. But we couldn't have done it if we didn't have a camera.
Okay. Okay. Mayor?
I agree with Mike. Digital camera, hands down. For me, I like to take pictures, and I take pictures of everything. That's my thing. And taking pictures in cemeteries, head over heels, my thing. But just the chance that someday you're going to get something, my thing for that, I want to get that full-bodied apparition and show up in my picture someday. And if I didn't have a camera to document, what I saw or whatever, I would feel terrible. So for me, definitely a camera as well. But if you're somebody who wants instant gratification, because a lot of this paranormal stuff that we do, you got to go back and listen to your recordings later.
Yeah.
You got to go back and look at your photos. If you want instant gratification, Mog Lake flashlight.
Flashlight?
Mog flashlight. Mog Lake flashlight.
See, I would say K2, but that's my preferred device. I
Okay.
carry K2 and digital recorder.
SB7.
Well, now you change your mind.
Now you're going with all these. Now you're just toying with that. Now you're just naming everything you like to play with.
Camera and recorder.
I'm saying the Mog Light flashlight as if you want that
SB7.
instant gratification, because I was with someone, and we'll talk about this later, at the Farnsworth house, who had never been on an investigation before, and we did a little flashlight session, and oh my gosh, this person, I thought they were gonna run out the door, because as soon as that flashlight responded to a response to a question, so instant gratification flashlight.
Okay, well, if you have questions for these guys or myself, and any questions about Gettysburg, paranormal investigating, history, whatever, please leave it in the comments below, and we'll try to work them into the show and answer your questions. So we are on a live broadcast right now, and every once in a while we got to take some breaks. We got to get more coffee, feed Glenn, that kind of thing. So feed Glenn. So we're going to take a break right now, and we will be back talking about Sachs Bridge. So stay tuned and leave your comments.
All right, we'll be right back.
Alrighty, we are back with Dark Shadow Ghost Tours After Tour Gettysburg Wrap Up
2015.
We gave you a little bit of overview on our first day of traveling down to Gettysburg and some of our opinions. Well, mostly their opinions. I was told that on break that I didn't give a lot of mine, but that's okay. Hey, okay. So the first day that we there, and I said before, we checked in and checked out the farmhouse and everything. We decided we were going to go out to a place called Sachs Bridge. Now, there was a video that was posted out on YouTube. It's still posted on YouTube. If you do a search on Gettysburg Ghosts, this video comes up. And in the video, there are local paranormal groups in Gettysburg. They offer ghost tours and things like that. So they had a group out there, and they were providing a cigarette to a supposed entity named Tennessee. And what they do is they light the cigarette and they leave it on the railing, and Tennessee smokes the cigarette, and he'll spin it and turn it and flick it off when he's done. So we thought, since we're like into performing experiments and things like that, we're going to go out to Sachs Bridge and we're going to try to recreate that video. So you want to tell them yes or no? Did we recreate the video?
Perfectly.
Perfect.
Okay, there's your one answer, one word answer.
We went there. We set everything up. We had the camera. We had the video camera with the night vision focused right on there, on the railing. We put a cigarette, and we recreated the video that's on YouTube completely. We got the spirit named Tennessee to smoke the cigarette, spun the cigarette around on the railing, and flicked it off just like in the video. Now, I don't know how detailed you want me to get about this.
No, go ahead. This is all your segment.
we had a it was awesome to recreate something and have it end up being just like the video you see on YouTube. And when we got back after and we were analyzing the film, we agreed there's no way you can fake or manipulate the cigarette to be smoked. So I mean, something was there drawing on a cigarette, which was pretty cool. Spinning it, could it have been the wind? It could have been. Knocking the cigarette off the rail. Once again, when the cigarette burns back, it gets heavy on it's heavier on the filter side, so it might flip over. But the thing that got me was, it didn't just fall off the back of the rail. Some of the times it flew off the back of the rail. But you know what? We did what good paranormal investigators do. We talked about it and we set up a test to go back and reinvestigate during the daytime.
Which we did.
Yes, we did.
Was that the next day or
2 days?
was it?
Because we went there on a Wednesday night, and then we went there on Friday, early Friday.
Yeah.
Because Thursday we were
Thursday
busy.
was the investigation.
So we went back the second time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the debate was amongst the group was that the movement of the cigarette could have been caused by the filter. When the cigarette smokes down and you have more mass of the filter.
Because it was a round
yes,
railing.
A round railing.
And so then you had something teetering on it, and one side was getting shorter, so that meant the other side was longer. And so we were, debating on that, plus the fact that the filter was there, which would make it a little heavier on that end to boot.
Mm-hmm.
So we were a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a video. Let's take a look at the video and you can see our footage. Now, since we're broadcasting live, we can't play that video, but if you look in the links below, it says Sachs Bridge cigarette experiment. So you guys can click that and watch the video later. But when we edit this, we'll splice that video in. So the video just played, and it shows our footage of 2 different nights. The one with it Stark was the first night, and then
The other day, one was about 4:30 in the afternoon on the other day.
yeah, without the filter.
Right.
Yes. We decided we were going to take the weight of the filter out of the equation.
Now, the first night, we had a little bit of controversy
Yes,
because
we did.
when, I think you say when you're done with that, flick it off, to make the cigarette go off the thing. Andrea had said that she bumped the rail.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's like, "Oh my gosh,
I
I'm
bumped
so
the rail.
sorry."
I ruined the experiment. So we kind of made fun of her, of course.
Of course we did.
Of course we did.
Yeah, of course.
And we did it again, and then it flicked off the rail. Now, when we were back there the second time, we had people come up wanting to know what we were doing, hammering down on that rail.
Yeah,
And
they
you
would.
could see the cigarette bouncing. And
They would come up and they would
What's
grab
that?
the rail, look over, and they'd be like, "What are you guys looking at over there? What's in the water?"
Yeah.
Because they thought we were looking
Yeah.
at something on the other side. Of
so
the
there was
railing.
one part in the video that I kept that part where it shows the somebody hitting that really
Yes.
heavy, and that cigarette did not flick off of there.
It stayed right there.
So then we kind of apologized a little bit to Andrea. We're like, "It might
And we
not
apologize
have been
again,
you.
Andrea.
It
I know
might
you're
not have been
watching.
you."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she was innocent.
Yeah. So, but
But it smoked the whole cigarette completely down to ash.
Yes, when there was no filter, literally you had the round bar and then you had the ash, and it was literally a straight line across, and it just it did the whole entire thing, didn't tip it over.
Yeah.
So
now, if you do a little bit more research on Sachs Bridge, there's more to it than just
Mhm.
Tennessee smoking a cigarette.
yes,
As far as history of the bridge, do you want to take the history of our tour guide, or do you want me to tell the history?
I'll tell a little bit. You just bounce in if you want
go
to.
ahead.
Basically, Sachs Bridge, when the Confederates were retreating, they went down the path and across Sachs Bridge. And Sachs Bridge is over a stream, a river. I don't know exactly
It's
what it
actually a
is. Is it a
river.
river?
It's a
Okay. So it crosses that. That's why the bridge is there. And there's 2 main things, really. One is, as they were going across, they realized that some of them were sort of maybe traitors. They weren't exactly on the same side that they were. And
Right.
so they ended up, they decided to hang them. And so
There was
they
3
hung
that were
them,
hung.
3 of them, from the rafters in the bridge, Sachs Bridge. And they left them hang there as a warning to others,
So that
stay
the
with
other
us.
retreating soldiers,
and the others
they made a lesson.
would see and really stick with the focus of their plans.
Yeah.
And the other piece was that, of course, there's all the wounded and dying, and they were treating them and using the water. And so there would be blood and limbs and things that supposedly would be tossed into that water system there. So you've got the water and you've got the hanging, and that's really the big part about the bridge itself. Now there's a pathway there too that has another haunting.
Well, all along
but-
through there, those were field hospitals, and along the banks of the river, they set up makeshift field hospitals with amputees and just chucked everything in the river. And there's a lot of paranormal activity at Sachs Bridge.
Yes.
However, it's a public location. So, like when we were there the first night, it was packed. There was a ton of locals and other people like us there looking for ghosts. So it was kind of hard to do EVP session, that kind of thing. And we were snapping pictures left and right. And actually, Laura, I believe that was the first night. Laura, that was with us. She just sent me some pictures that I saw them on her phone before, but I didn't have a chance to put them into the presentation yet of some moving, stuff. We're going to post that into the group and have some discussion about it. But Mary Ann and I were there 2 years ago and did a ghost tour at Sachs Bridge and heard some of the stories and things like that. There's a lady, Miss Betty does an awesome, goes over the history. She does field hospitals and Sachs Bridge. And it's just amazing the history of that bridge, and a lot of people know about it, and there's a lot of paranormal activity. So, and
I think more and more people are hearing about it, and that might be why we saw such an increase. Because 2 years ago when we went, there were a couple people here and there that kind of came through, but we were pretty much the tour, and nobody else was really around. Right. There were a few people, but it was pretty secluded. When we went this time, it was packed.
I mean, when we were leaving, there were droves of people still coming.
And I was surprised because when we went, it was a Wednesday night. I'm thinking, oh, nobody will be here Wednesday night. The weekend it'll be packed. It was packed on Wednesday.
We do have Sachs Bridge listed in Panic D, and some of the paranormal claims and the history and things of that nature is listed in there. Several pictures and things like that we've taken.
And now we'll be able to add more.
Oh, yeah, we had the cigarette video. Now, when we went back the second time, not the first night, but when we went back, the daytime version, we went back because we just wanted to duplicate that video again, because I think we did it 2 or 3 times the first night. And after the discussion, we were like, okay, we got to go back and try again without a filter. When we went back, when we first got there was nobody there.
Right.
And then, we all had our shirts on.
We all had them because this is the day we went out into public, and we kind of wanted to keep track of all 10 of us.
So we were around the cigarette. People really couldn't see the cigarette, but they could see our video cameras and everything. People were coming up to us like we were
celebrities.
Yeah, celebrity. What's going on? That type of thing. But what about that little friend that...
Are you talking about the snake friend?
Yeah. Oh,
it was not little. It was huge, but it was really quite amusing. And it's not paranormal in any way, stretch, or form, but there's snakes down there, and they're big. The one time we were doing it, and we're all standing around there.
Trees.
Definitely. We're standing there, we're doing the thing, and you can see in the background of our pictures this tree and this giant snake on it, right? And so this girl, she goes down there, she goes down the path and around, and she runs past it, and she goes, oh, it moved. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It's right there. And she's like, oh my, and she freaked out, and then she didn't want to come back up. And I'm like, it's okay. It's all right. You came past there already. It didn't notice you. It didn't want to bother you. You can come back. She was actually going for a turtle. She wanted to take a picture of a turtle.
Pictures of the little turtle.
Yeah.
She didn't see the
but she got to see the snake.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a boa, but it was a big snake.
Big old black
snake.
Big
and black, yeah. So.
And that night, 2 nights before that, we were up and down all through the trees.
In the dark.
I wasn't even thinking about snakes and stuff, whatever.
So there are snakes. There's wildlife outside.
Yes.
Anyways, if you do go to Gettysburg, we had some people in the chat room or a person in the chat room getting ready to go there.
Yes.
Sachs Bridge. I'm going to tell you, it's not hard.
It's not easy to find. Okay. But once you find it, it's all right.
If you can find Eisenhower's farm, keep going a little bit. There's a road there. I think it's something Waterworks Road.
Waterworks.
Turn down Waterworks Road, and it's right down there. But find Eisenhower's farm. That's the easiest way to get to it. And just drive right by it.
Yeah.
Cool place.
Besides Tennessee, what did you guys think as far as paranormal activity? Did you know how sometimes you go in those places, you just get that feeling, it's just that, did you feel anything there? I'll tell you my opinion this time, Mike.
Okay.
But, what did you, I know we were kind of wrapped up in doing that cigarette thing, but besides that, did you get any vibes or anything?
This time, I did not. Last time I was there 2 years ago, it was quieter. It was more somber. You just kind of got to soak it in. This time I felt
there was even
that
people
was
on the
different.
banks there fishing with lights.
Yeah.
There.
This time it just seemed different. I didn't notice it as much. It was so active there with human spirit that was living that I think it kind of deafened the ability to really notice any of the paranormal.
I agree. I mean, totally. We were there, you know, and it was so cool. You know, we were focused on recreating the video, and then when we wrapped up from there, and we went down below on the path, and you know, it was, you know, you have locals, you have college students, you have people fishing. You know, the noise level's high. People were driving around in big old noisy monster trucks with no exhaust,
blaring the radios.
You know, and
country music.
then when we left, when we finally wrapped up from down below, we went up and set up on the end of the bridge inside where they, or in the neighborhood of where they hung the three Confederate soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we tried there. If you remember, you know, we got a couple K2 hits
on the bridge.
Yes,
on the bridge when we were
pretty much under the rafters where
we were starting to talk about, you know, finding family and, you know, if, you know, reconnecting with the militia and stuff like that. You know, then the lights, you know, the K2s flash a little bit, but once again, it was so busy with living activity that
I think there was one time, and if they're watching, I really don't care, but there was one time exactly at that same spot where we got the K2 hits. I think there was 3 high school, college,
I call them
whatever.
teeny boppers.
Yeah. They ran into the bridge and they're snapping pictures and laughing and giggling. And I think on the other side was a group of guys trying to do an EVP session.
Yeah, they had video cameras.
And it was like, you know, just it was a party.
Yeah, and that's
this was 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard when you're trying to do an investigation on the claims and stuff. But you know, it is what it is. It's a public place. You just have to deal with it. Now, I by no means whatsoever am any type of sensitive or anything like that. But I do every once in a while get that feeling where I'm being watched or just something that's just not there. Now, see, I got that down the path. When we went down the path and went away from all of that, and there was those 2 guys down there that were doing something. I don't know what they were doing. They were pointing at a house.
Yeah,
to the right of them,
it.
I was getting that feeling like there was something watching us. You know, whether they were, you know, maybe the spirits were just hiding out there. Everybody went home or whatever it was. But I got that feeling there's something down there. But we walked down there.
You and I did, yeah.
Because I was taking pictures and those guys kept showing up on the camera and I didn't.
Yeah, he's like, is there somebody down there? And I'm like,
reflecting.
yeah, there's some people down there. We went to check to make sure it was real people.
I got that feeling like down the path farther away from the bridge.
And down the path farther, if you remember, there are some houses that were used as field hospitals. So it's quite possible that there were some injured lying around out there at some point that were kind of hiding out, trying to get them to a field hospital. They could have been watching, you know, as a residual type thing too.
Yeah, but on the bridge itself, you know, it was, you know, it's kind of.
Yeah, it was.
Don't want to use the word dead.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. But just so you know, if you're going to go to Gettysburg and you go to Sachs Bridge, there are reports. I've not had it, but there are reports where if you take photographs of the end of the bridge with the rafter, that sometimes you can actually get pictures that have 3 individuals hanging from the rafter.
There's actually a picture on the internet of an apparition that's standing in the middle of the bridge next to a guy that's dressed up in.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that one.
I'll show it to you.
But thank you. But I've tried both years that I went to take pictures down there towards that, and I haven't gotten any success, but
now across from the bridge where we actually parked our cars. So when you pull in, you can actually park to the right. There's a field there. Now they've built something with a fence around it, like they're growing food or whatever. But in that field, apparitions have been seen in that field walking away from the bridge too.
Yes.
So there's reports of that. But you know, let me ask this: would you guys go back to Sachs Bridge?
Yeah. I want to go back and try to get a quieter day again.
Yeah, we'd have to figure that out.
I don't know if
Somehow.
Wednesday's just a busy day for them, but
Yeah.
definitely
Wasn't
I'd
even
like
on
to
the
try.
weekend when we were
Yeah.
there.
I'd like to try to do it again and see if we can get something when it's a little quieter. Because I do think that there's a lot of commotion. You're not going to pick that stuff up anyway.
Yeah, which we've experienced in other places.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Mike? You go back?
Oh, most definitely.
All right, let's go. We'll see you guys. No. All right, so it's that time again. We're going to take another little quick break, and we are going to come back and talk about the National Cemetery a little bit more.
Yay.
And we will see you in a little bit. If you have questions, please keep them coming. We have some on there that our last segment, we're going to be answering your questions. We got a couple good ones on there, and we need more, so we can have a segment here at the
We
end.
gotta tell them about a t-shirt. What? We gotta tell them about a t-shirt.
I guess so. Should we?
What?
Hey,
about a t-shirt?
It's up to you, boys.
For best question.
Oh, best question.
Best question.
I thought we were putting them all in all the questions into a thing and
If
pulling.
they ask the question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they ask.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. All right, if you ask us a question, we're going to put the questions in a little thing and we're going to pull it out, and somebody's going to win a Dark Shadow Ghost Tours After Tour t-shirt, which is a limited edition. It's only available to the production staff and whoever's going to win that drawing. We're going to do that in the last segment. So keep them questions coming. Gettysburg related, paranormal related, history of Gettysburg related. Ask your questions. We'll be back in a little bit, folks.
Yep.
All right.
See you then.
See you. Okay, folks, we are back with Dark Shadow Ghost Tours After Tour Gettysburg Edition.
2015.
You should probably say Gettysburg Edition.
We used to do it that way, but
That's all right. Next time we can do it that way. Couple housekeeping things I want to mention. First of all, the videos and any of the evidence that we're talking about here during the show, there are links to them down below under the resources for the show. But when we edit this and put it together, we're going to include them. In this segment, we're going to be talking about an EVP that we captured. So I want to tell you about a little bit about Divine Paranormal and our EVP collection. Now, the group of people that went out to Gettysburg were actually in 3 different things. Okay, so it's all the same people.
but everybody's in Dark
Whoever we
Shadow
talk
Ghost
to,
Tours.
okay. Everybody's in Dark Shadow Ghost Tours. There's also members of researchers of PanicD.com database. And we now have a paranormal group, Divine Paranormal, where we could go out and do investigations and things like that. So if you got stuff going on in your house, whatever you need, get a hold of Divine Paranormal. And it's basically the same group, but that's actually our investigation team. Now, the website, divineparanormal.com,
Yes.
we have a case manager on there that we're still working the kinks out and development and everything. But right now, everybody on the team's posting their evidence and stuff from, what we've been investigating since this summer. I don't even know how many different places, but we're just piling all the evidence on there. And what happens is the group gets a chance to review each person's evidence, and before it goes live out to the public, we leave comments and we discuss it and things like that. And so we're still posting EVPs and pictures and stuff like that from Gettysburg and other investigations. But once they go live, you can actually go into the case manager and review the cases that we've investigated. Or just for EVPs, we have a section called EVP Collection. I posted a link to that because we're going to be talking about a couple EVPs that we did capture. And one of them we're going to be talking about, which is, I consider it a Class A. Very cool. But so Divine Paranormal is for our investigation team. A lot of that stuff will probably move over to Panic D eventually, underneath the locations and things like that. Now, Dark Shadow Ghost Tours is a production team. We bring people out to these tours, and we do the after tour show, and we do the live virtual ghost hunts and murder mystery dinners and scavenger hunts and all kinds of fun things like that. And those kind of things help fund the other things that are basically, I don't want to say nonprofit because they're not, but
we don't make money.
We don't make money. So,
Right.
you know, somebody's got to pay for microphones and recorders and things like that. And that's when Dark Shadow Ghost Tours comes in, which is a division of our main corporation. But anyways, I didn't say that in the beginning. I apologize for that, but I wanted to kind of clear things up because we are going to start talking about Divine Paranormal's website where you can find these EVPs, and I did put a link in the resource page. So we covered Sachs Bridge, covered day 1. We're going to day 2. Day 2, we started off with not really thinking in the morning of going out and doing an investigation. We were going to go do some sightseeing.
Sightseeing and getting some of those who hadn't gone to Gettysburg to see some of the sights and to really get a feel for where we were. Basically, that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
So
I played tour guide.
Marianne played, yeah.
Very well.
We had the walkie-talkies when we were traveling. Well, as we were driving through Gettysburg, we had the walkie-talkies, and Marianne was our tour guide.
To your left, you'll find.
Yeah. So National Cemetery was the first place that we stopped that morning. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Why flip over and bring up the picture?
About the cemetery?
Yeah, the history of it.
History?
Why is there a national cemetery?
Why? Because we had a lot of people that died in one area, and it was actually the very first national cemetery for the soldiers in Gettysburg.
Actually, in the nation.
Yes, it was in Gettysburg was that first one. And basically they wanted a way to honor the dead who strived and fought and died for their country. And that's where the very first soldiers cemetery actually was. Do you want me to tell them about Lincoln or?
Sure.
Okay, so the Soldiers National Cemetery was going to be made, and they started going around. They hired some of the local individuals in town to go up and start digging up the dead that they knew where they were and bringing them on over. And so they started doing that and building the cemetery. And they were going to have a dedication ceremony. There's a picture of Abe Lincoln there. They're going to do a dedication ceremony for this cemetery. And so they invited one of the most world-renowned orators of the time, Mr. Everett, to come in and do the speech. And as a side note, David Wills decided, hey, you know what? We should kind of invite the president. And so they invited.
You got to remember, too, at that time, that was in November of
so they were
the same
pulling bodies in October.
And the war was still going on, so the president was a little occupied at the time. So they didn't even think that he would even respond.
They didn't think that he would come, but David Wills got a response back saying, sure, I'll be there. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, the president's coming, but we have Mr. Everett coming. And they're like, that's okay. So Everett came along and Lincoln came along, and they had graves being buried at the same time as the presentation, and they had just thousands of people and soldiers and
I think it was like one
townspeople.
It was one of the rangers, because that's federal property and there's federal rangers there that are tour guides. He told us at the same time that presentation was going on, which was in November. If you don't know when the Gettysburg battle was, that was in July. But,
July 1, 2, 3.
He said they were embalming bodies while the presentation was going on in the cemetery property and burying them at the same time. So that's
so they were doing that, and they get up there and they have a platform that they kind of put out. They ended up putting it in Evergreen Cemetery property, where we'll talk about that shortly. But put it on Evergreen Cemetery property because they were burying the people on the National Cemetery, and then the rest of the National Cemetery space was pretty much taken over with the people who came to the dedication ceremony. And they did the presentation. Everett took 2 hours, and of course we know Lincoln's Gettysburg Address took 2 minutes. So they're out there in November listening to this long speech from Everett, and then up comes the president, and they're like, here we go, a nice long-winded speech again. And it wasn't. It was short, sweet, simple, to the point, and we remember that one. And who knows what Everett said.
Yeah, I bet you most of you out there listening don't even know who Edward Everett was.
Right.
You know,
never even heard of him.
And it was so amazing. You can, if you can just imagine, I mean, all this was set up, and the ceremony and everything was in the Evergreen Cemetery, which was an actual cemetery in that day. And lining the edge of it there were all the cannons, because what is now the National Cemetery was Cemetery Ridge.
Right.
And so that was an actual battlefield. That was the hill that the Confederates, luckily the Union got there first, and the Confederates were fighting to try to take. And so you can just imagine all the bodies and how battle beat the ground itself was, with all the cannon fire, and it's amazing.
Yeah. So I brought up another picture here. This picture shows it doesn't do it justice as far as standing there, but that picture there shows the graves that are unknown.
One of the segments, because there's actually another segment of unknown there as well.
Right. So you could just see how many are there, and those are numbered. They're just numbered.
Right.
And those
So
are
no
unknown
names.
Union soldiers.
Right.
That's
And
right.
and something else about the cemetery is the way that they laid out the National Cemetery. It's in an arch, and all the soldiers are lined up in this arch pattern around the central monument that is broken up then by state. So if they were able to identify what state you went to,
That's the
they
central
put
monument
you
there.
in a section of that cemetery with all of your fallen comrades. As far as the others that they couldn't figure out who they were, because again, like Sean mentioned earlier, they didn't have dog tags. They tried to figure out who you were based on letters you might have had in your pocket or photographs you had, or even the buttons on your uniform were for
Right.
different states. They were just trying to at least figure out what state you were from, and especially from July to the end of October, November, what's really going to be left
Well,
to
they were
identify
digging
you?
them
So
up,
that's
too,
why there's
from-
so many unknowns.
They were bringing them up from shallow graves too, so they were covered in mud, and
Right.
they were putting them in. Let's see, how did he describe it? They were putting them in pine boxes,
4 feet deep,
and burying them 4 feet deep,
Shoulder to
shoulder to
shoulder.
shoulder,
um,
as they were in battle.
as they were in battle. So, wow. And Marianne touched upon it a little bit, but basically the people of Gettysburg were pleading with the national government that they needed help because there were bodies everywhere, and they were buried in shallow graves, and there'd be women that'd be standing at the sink, whatever, and look over, and there's a hand that pops up, and they needed help, and that's why the state commissioned David Wills, who was an attorney there in Gettysburg, to purchase the land and
Get the ball
organize
rolling.
the dedication of the cemetery and get everything going. So we decided when we went out, we got to stop there and just pay respect and kind of see this place. And the cannons were there. We got pictures by the cannons and things like that. And
Being from Ohio.
yeah, well, just being paranormal investigators, we mentioned Mike had his recorder rolling. You had yours going too, Lee?
Yes, I did.
So we were walking around that monument in the middle, looking at the different states, and we come across Ohio, and I remembered a picture from when we were there before about President Nixon visited the cemetery, and he came to the grave of his
Great grandfather. Yes.
great grandfather and placed the wreath. So we knew he was from Ohio. So when we wrapped around, we were getting ready to leave, we stopped to find that grave, and I was showing everybody, hey, here's where that picture was taken. And Mike, what did we end up getting there on the recorders?
Well, we were standing there looking at the marker for Nixon, and we were talking about how he felt about his great great grandson, and Lee had asked, well, how do you feel about your great great grandson becoming president? We got an EVP that said clear as day, because I am still fighting. So, granted, it didn't really make any sense from the standpoint of relating back to Nixon.
Right.
But when you saw him think that whole hill was a battle, it makes you wonder if the battle isn't ongoing.
Either that, or maybe somebody was there before we got there and asked a question and just took them a while to answer it.
That could be too.
Which could be.
But yeah, it was it was really cool. And as soon as and we didn't hear this, when we were there, because
Well, let's play it for them now.
all right, we can do that.
So for those of you watching this live, like I mentioned earlier, if you go to Divine Paranormal's EVP collection, we're talking about EVP number 19. You can actually play that and hear that EVP that Mike was just talking about. And I tell you what, I believe it's Class A. It is crystal clear and pretty amazing.
Yes, I mean, so makes you wonder, if due to unfinished business and things going on, that if they really are not still locked in battle to this very day.
Right. All in all, though, I mentioned a little bit ago about the Rangers that are there. If you are in Gettysburg, you have to stop at the National Cemetery. They do free tours. The Rangers there are very knowledgeable. I mean, they know their stuff inside and out, and they give the tours. And
they do have a couple of specific times that they do them per day, but there's usually a ranger around somewhere. If you have a question, they are more than happy to answer it. They're like walking encyclopedias of the area.
They are so helpful.
And and if you're researching or investigating, they're a great resource to go to help point you in the right direction. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But at the end there, we were speaking with one of the Rangers. I don't know if he was on break or waiting for another tour, and we were talking with him a little bit. And it's just it's a really cool place to go to.
If I think about it, I'll post a link on the Dark Shadows page as well for a link that the Rangers actually have for the Soldiers National Cemetery.
Yeah.
A little bit more detailed information about how many of the soldiers are buried there, all that kind of information. So more of that history piece for you if you're interested in that.
Okay, so from there we went on over to Evergreen Cemetery, and it sounds like we had to go a long ways.
But we just went really on the other side of the fence.
On the other side of the fence. Evergreen Cemetery butts right up against the National Cemetery, but it's the town of Gettysburg Cemetery. It's not the national property. And why don't you talk about Evergreen Cemetery a little bit? Why bring the pictures up here?
Okay. Evergreen Cemetery has what they call a gatehouse out front, which was it looks like an arch building that they actually had a family living in who was the caretaker family of the property. And one of the individuals who was the caretaker at the time during the battle, he went off to war. And so he left his wife there. And she ended up digging the graves for anybody who just kind of brought the bodies there and dropped them off, said, hey, this one's another one dead. And she was 6 months pregnant when she did it. And
that's not her.
No, that's not her.
All right, so let me take this back because I have orders of the pictures according to my notes. Okay.
All right. Sure.
The Evergreen Cemetery is not a normal town cemetery. It has a lot of history in it, and that covers, and I'm sure there's more that we don't know about yet, because I would love to go to that library and kind of look stuff up about the cemetery. But anyways, it has the gravesite of Jenny Wade, which we're going to talk about Jenny Wade. It has the gravesite of Johnston Skelly, which was believed to be Jenny Wade's fiance. It has a gravesite of David Wills. We just talked about David Wills. He was the one that organized the national dedication and the cemetery itself. David Wills, actually, that's where Abraham Lincoln stayed. He stayed at his house, and you could go tour that house if you want to and see the bedroom. The bed that he slept in is still there. Mike mentioned here a little bit ago, and if these pictures start working right, but it was Battlefield. The cemetery, which was established, was Battlefield. That was Cemetery Ridge. That's why they called it Cemetery Ridge. And the Confederates tried nonstop to take that position. And if they would have, things could have changed. Well, there was a few battles that went on that could have changed the outcome of that. But that was one of the primary locations because the Union's artillery was fixed on top of that hill over in the property of the National Cemetery. And then we have the story of Elizabeth Thorne, which Marianne was just talking about here, but I'm going to have her come back and hit that a little bit more because that is a really interesting story.
And Geddes is there too.
Mm-hmm.
Is he?
Yep.
I don't have it on my notes. James Geddes.
I have a picture of his memorial.
The founder of Gettysburg.
Yes.
Okay.
Tavern owner. My kind of guy.
Yes.
Okay,
and
so
those are just a few that we know of.
we started off going to Evergreen Cemetery, first of all, to see Jenny Wade's grave. Now, Jenny Wade was the only civilian killed during the Battle of Gettysburg. Marianne's going to cover her story. We didn't do that in the after tour before. We actually did it when we were on the radio to tell that story. But that's the house we investigated. If you're a Ghost Adventures fan, you know a little bit about Jenny Wade. But her gravesite is one of only 2 women in the United States that has a United States flag flying over it 24/7. The other one is Betsy Ross. And we have, Marianne and I had we were fortunate enough to go to Philadelphia after this and actually see Betsy Ross's grave, and it's nothing close to that flagpole.
No, it's just a little stick in the ground. And we both looked at it and said, wow, Jenny's flag is just head over heels better than Betsy Ross's.
That's right.
So Georgia did a good job. And for those of you who don't know, Georgia is Jenny Wade's sister.
Now, one of our goals while we were in Evergreen Cemetery is to try to locate Scully, his grave. We knew it was there. We didn't find it on the first night. On that trip, we didn't. We actually went back a couple days later, and my man Mike here found it. But that's a picture right there of
Johnston Jack Skelly.
Johnston Skelly, which is the young man who's believed to be Jenny Wade's fiance. And they never made it back together.
They did not.
But they are buried pretty close to each other, which is kind of nice.
If you stand right behind Skelly's gravestone, you can look straight out, and to the left a little bit, you can see Jenny Wade's statue and the flagpole, and you can tell if he can see her, he can still see her.
Marianne's going to cover that a little bit more in the Jenny Wade story here, but that right there is a picture of David Wills' final resting place, who was very instrumental with Gettysburg. Now, we talked about that hill being the battle. This is a sketch of the Battle of Cemetery Ridge, and you could see the evergreen arch there at the top. So just past those arches was where the Union artillery was, and that's Confederates trying to take that hill. So we're talking battlefield all through that cemetery.
Definitely.
This is actual picture of the arch before they added that house onto it. So when Marianne talks about Elizabeth Thorne, I have her name down here wrong for some reason.
What do you have it in?
I have Masser.
Oh, no. That was a maiden name.
Maiden name. Okay. Her family actually lived in that arch. They were the caretakers of the cemetery. So, and then another thing that we did while we were there was we reenacted the Gettysburg Address.
Yes.
So we have a video of that, which I would like to play now because it's quite moving. And let's go ahead and play that. Again, for those of you who are live, there's a link to that video below that you can actually play that video. It's, how long was the Gettysburg Address?
It's 2 minute
2 minutes?
address. So ours is slightly longer than that.
We had the recorders going. Everyone had them going. We were hoping to catch something like an EVP. We did that experiment as a trigger object, but
no luck. But it definitely, I liked it. I wanted to do that, that's one of the things. I made a list of things I wanted to do when I went. Had to go to Mr. G's ice cream. I had to go to the cemetery and say the Gettysburg Address. I wanted to go to Farnsworth House. So this is one of the things I wanted to do, and I thought it would be a pretty nice tribute, and thought maybe it might be a good trigger object to see if we can get any of those souls that were in the cemetery either on the day of the Gettysburg Address or that are buried there to come in and chat with us. But didn't quite happen. But
So that's
the Gettysburg Address, I thought, went well.
now the thing is we actually went to the location where we believe that the platform was. Now this is a picture looking at Evergreen Cemetery. Okay, so if you look, let's see if I could do it and bring up.
So
the
you're
pointer.
you're on the Soldiers National Cemetery
Right.
plot, looking at the Evergreen Cemetery.
So this little bump right here is the actual platform where Everett, David Wills, President Lincoln, they were all right there. There was 15,000 people there during this dedication. And Marianne, she mentioned this earlier, but it's kind of funny. And I think the ranger told us this maybe. You can see there's photographers there if you look at that crowd closely, but there's really not a good picture of Abraham Lincoln
No.
giving the Gettysburg Address. And the reason for that is because Everett got up there and talked for 2.5 hours giving his speech. Then he sat down, and I'm trying to remember because I saw the program of the thing. We have it somewhere, but saw the program. There was like a song, and then they introduced President Lincoln, and he stood up, and of course the photographers were probably just resting. They figured, they got time, right? 2 minutes, he was done. So they didn't even give the photographers enough time to load up their cameras to take a picture.
Yeah, it was a big process back then.
But again, like I said earlier, we remember the Gettysburg Address. I don't even know what Everett said. I don't care less.
Nobody.
Actually, but,
Nobody.
that video of that reenactment, it's
I'd like to find his address from that day.
Everett's.
Yes.
Oh,
I think that'd be kinda
jeez, there goes eBay. It'll be coming in the mail next week. So go ahead and tell us the story about. I'll put her picture back up here.
Oh, Elizabeth, I was telling you
Yeah.
Elizabeth's story.
So I know I stopped you, but I remembered the
Yes, I
order of
know.
my pictures. Go ahead and tell us a story about Elizabeth, because and actually I believe, yes, there's a link to a blog post that we put out there about the Angel of Gettysburg, and that tells a story, and there's some more pictures out there and things like that. But this is something we kind of like picked up new when we were there. We didn't know this one before.
Yes. So they have a statue. You can see the picture of the statue Sean has there now, dedicated to Elizabeth Thornton. You can see she has a slight baby bump there. And from the other angle, you can see it better, but on her left there, it's her right, our left. There's a shovel that she's holding, and she's wiping the sweat from her brow. She was burying the dead because her husband was off at war. They pretty much said, hey, you got to keep it up. And so he left her in charge, and, McConaughey, who was in charge of the cemetery, came and said, hey, you got to bury these dead. And so she had to go out there and bury them. 6 months pregnant, didn't matter. Wartime, middle of, heat in July, it doesn't matter. Got to get it
Now
done.
she had her elderly parents, and how many children already?
She had
3 or 4?
3 already, and
It's
she
in the
was with
blog
child.
post. I'm sorry, I didn't read it before the show, but
She had
I remember.
3, I believe, and she was with child.
so she had a family she was taking care of,
Right.
plus taking care of the cemetery, and all of a sudden here comes Confederate soldiers taking all their food, wanting their horses and things like that. And the Union came in and said, hey, you better get out of here.
Right.
And she had to pack
And
the
she-
family up
she
and
did.
leave.
She did. They packed up and left, and she came back in the middle of the night trying to check on things, and she said everything's gone. She placed some things in the basement of the
Actually,
house.
I think in the blog post we have her diary.
Yes, a link to
Yeah.
her diary. Yes,
Yeah, her diary's actually in there, and it says
which
in
is
there,
helpful at knowing what happened.
Right. It says in there that they came back. Would have been July 2nd. When was Jenny Wade killed? Was it
Third.
2nd? She was killed the 3rd. They came back at 2 a.m. to check on their items that they were told to put in the basement.
And her cattle.
And I think it was pigs.
Yes.
They're pigs they had fattened on. So they-
Cattle, pigs. They're all
Whatever,
farm animals to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Pigs.
her and her father snuck back at 2 a.m. after the battle calmed down, and they found that their basement where they put their good things, their good linens and things like that, that was being used as a field hospital. So all their good linens and things
Covered
like
in
that
blood.
were covered in blood, and pigs were gone. They probably
The rest of their goods were
yeah.
gone.
It was bottom
And
line.
gone.
It was total devastation. So
in the midst of her having to bury all these dead, she has her household. It's all in disarray as well.
that's right. So amazing story, and I think she went and asked. Now we're talking Union soldiers too. She went and asked for provisions for her family, and she was told, "What do you want to do? Just live off the army or live off the military."
Yeah. Meanwhile, they took everything she had.
Yeah, they had no food, no nothing. So they did get provisions, and I think it said they got those cakes, those nasty freaking
Hardtack.
yeah, hardtack cakes, coffee, and sugar.
Sugar.
And that was it. She had to feed her family, plus bury 100 and some soldiers 6 months pregnant. So that's an amazing story. Evergreen Cemetery. I tell you what, folks. If I say you got to stop at the National Cemetery. If you're into history and you want to kind of piece some things together, Evergreen's the next stop. You got to stop there and check some of these things out. Pay your respects.
If nothing else, look through the fence from Soldiers National
and you can
Cemetery
see it
over.
from the National Cemetery. So, as far as these cemeteries go, I know we're paranormal people. We
We like
always see a
cemeteries.
cemetery, and it's like, oh, cemetery. Gotta go there. But
Right turn.
besides that, I mean, it was. I made the statement before. Very somber in the National Cemetery. Put things in perspective, and knowing that there was battles going on in that Evergreen, and you can see battle damage on some of the stones and things like that. But what were your guys' thoughts about the two cemeteries?
You cannot help but be impressed when you go into the National Cemetery. The way they have the central monument, and then it's ringed by the flat numbered stones of the unknown, and then the outer rings they have the names of the soldiers. They have it broken up by states, and then they have the names of the soldiers actually on that. So it's just, like a ring of honor, and it's just, it's so amazing when you stop and you think that these were all young people, and, the lives and, their lives, you think that, my God, these were young kids, and their lives were just snuffed out. And then to see all that there, and then all the cannons that were still lining up there. And then right on the other side of the fence was the Evergreen, where, it was an actual working cemetery back at the time of the battle. And you see some of the...
I think it still
stones.
is. I'm at that one.
Yes, it
The
is
one
still.
side.
Yes.
Kenny said there's still plots.
There are
available.
still plots available in Evergreen if you want to be buried alongside of some.
There's probably restrictions. Probably going to be a resident of Gettysburg. But hey,
I'm sure
ready to move.
you can move.
But you can see some of the stones being chipped and
Oh yeah,
and
battle damage.
and just it was
Battle
just
damage,
amazing.
age. It for me, it's perspective. It really gives you what happened here, and it makes you think about it. Because you're in a graveyard.
Well, the story of Elizabeth and her husband, they were just married a few years before the war broke out, and they were German immigrants, came to Gettysburg. He got the job as the superintendent. I mean,
First superintendent.
they were a young couple,
Mhm.
you know, and that's a good test of a marriage right there. I'll tell you, Jack. You want me to do what?
But you know, when you start, when you think though, you know, the Evergreen is laid out like a cemetery. The National Cemetery is laid out as a tribute, you know, and
Right.
to think that they were able, I mean, the design is just amazing, you know. I mean, it's like something that you would expect to see designed by people today, you know.
And you can't tell the way it's laid out and designed unless you're in the cemetery. Like if you're outside driving around Gettysburg, you say, "Oh, there's the National Cemetery." You see the monument, things like that, but you can't tell. It's like a park experience once you're inside the cemetery itself, which is it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it
Actually,
is.
because they got like a brick wall all the way around, and you really can't see all that. But it's
Yeah, it was definitely cool.
Except on the Evergreen Cemetery side, that one's a different kind of fence. You can see through that one.
right. That's an iron fence. So, Marianne, do you have anything you want to add to the cemeteries?
I just found David Will's gravestone,
Oh yes,
and
and I mentioned in our other show that she
loved-
jumped out of the car while
Yeah, I
it was
did.
moving.
I
David
loved
Wills.
Yes,
I
it did.
loved standing
I
at his
slowed
grave
down.
also, just like with
Not much.
Not much.
Just-
go. I'll
oh my
find you. I'm like,
gosh.
yeah, okay. She bailed.
I did, but just like with Jenny Wade and Johnston Jack Skelly's grave, where you can stand behind Johnston's grave and you can see Jenny's grave. You can do the same thing with David Will's grave. You can stand behind his gravestone and look across to the National Cemetery and see the monument to the Gettysburg Address.
That's another thing
And
we
that
need to mention
excites
too.
me. I don't know why, but it really
Yeah.
does. Just the
She's
idea that
excited about that.
he
Did you get a
he was
picture of that?
responsible. I did.
So
He
you
was
did.
responsible for that, and he can still see the
You can still
tribute
see
to
it.
that.
Okay, so when you walk into I don't know which side, north, south, east, west, whatever, off the parking lot, if you walk into the National Cemetery, that's the way we went. You're going to see a platform that's to the left, and you go up a little bit, and you'll see the monument for Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln,
On the
President Lincoln. Let's refer to him correctly. On the right, about the Gettysburg Address. However, and you can ask the park rangers this, and they will tell you it was not in the National Cemetery. That's where they put the monuments. That platform that is there is for when other dignitaries came and spoke at the cemetery, which the list is a mile long of presidents.
I believe it was 6 other U.S. presidents have spoken on that.
governors, that came there for different anniversaries and things like that. But if you look at the plaque, it says it's somewhere located 400, I think it says 400 and some feet inside of Evergreen Cemetery. And those pictures that we showed you and on that blog post, if you kind of figure it out, we did some research on that to try to figure out where it was. So don't be fooled by.
Yeah, because a lot
If
of
you go
people
there and
go
see
in
that.
the cemetery, they see that platform there, like, oh, that must be where the Gettysburg Address was.
Yeah, it was.
Or they think, oh, here's the monument to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, so it must have been over here. But it is not. It's not in that cemetery at all. It's in Evergreen.
You know, it was so cool because where we sort of figured it was, and when you were reciting the Gettysburg Address, which isn't a street number, you know, if you looked up, it was just a perfect shot through the trees of the steeple at Seminary Ridge. You know,
Yes.
so that was pretty cool. It's almost like tying everything together. You know.
Okay, it's that time again. We're going to take another quick little break, and then we're going to come back and talk about one of your most active, I think it was active, the most active place too, The orphanage.
The
And,
orphanage. Are we gonna do Jenny in the same segment?
we might. Let's see how far we go with the orphanage.
All
We got
right.
a lot of stuff with the orphanage.
All right.
We will be back in a few minutes. So if you have questions about anything that we're talking about, Gettysburg, paranormal investigations, some of the evidence that we've already shared with you, whatever, please comment below so that we have a segment here at the end.
Yes.
All right. See you soon.
And a chance to win a t-shirt. I keep forgetting about the t-shirt.
Oh my.
Oh, chance to win a Dark Shadow Ghost Tours After Tour t-shirt. And I believe that design, which I don't have with me, has our little buddy on it.
It does.
So please leave us your questions.
Yep.
We'll be back shortly. Alrighty, folks, we are back to Dark Shadow Ghost Tours After Tour.
Gettysburg edition.
2015.
There we go. We finally got it right. There, I haven't used that all night either.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about some of the places we've been and when we went on our trip to Gettysburg, and we're going to start talking about the 2 investigations that we actually had scheduled to do there, and one of them was pretty mind-blowing. Actually, that was the first place that we investigated. Was 10 o'clock Thursday night. We had the one investigation scheduled for the Homestead Orphanage. I keep calling it Soldiers National, but it was the Homestead Mortgage. Whatever.
Because of the original,
Yeah.
The Soldiers National Museum was part of that building before.
Okay. Yeah, I've been corrected on that. That's okay. And then at midnight, we were scheduled to investigate the Jenny Wade house. So let's talk a little bit about the orphanage. The orphanage, historically, Marianne, you want to go ahead and cover that?
The orphanage basically started out as a place for orphans of the war. They really found this picture of these 3 little boys on this one soldier, and they didn't know who he was, but he had this picture. They put it in all the newspapers. They said, do you know these children? You know, trying to figure out who this soldier was. And based on that, that was one of the reasons that they started the orphanage. And a lot of women, they did not have the ability to take care of the kids after they had no husband. They didn't have enough money to do that. And, so it was a place where the orphans of the area were able to go, and whether it was from the soldiers or from townspeople, because townspeople were killed after the war. We talk about Jenny Wade being the only civilian killed in the battle, but to be honest, after the battle, townspeople were dying from collecting the arms and collecting the weaponry that was laying out, because the government said, hey, we'll pay you for as many of these as you give us. We'll give you this much. Yeah. And so they were going out and they were, losing limbs and dying and as well. So
the government put out the federal government put out an order after the Civil War saying that they would pay for any artillery, weapons, things of that nature that could be collected. They would give you money for that. So, there was children in Gettysburg that were running out on the battlefields and collecting guns and things that were left there, and they would go off.
Mm-hmm.
And that'd be pretty tragic. So
the
orphanage was established for orphans of fallen soldiers. And like you said, the mothers didn't have the means to take care of the family, and the children had to go somewhere. So again, this is another location. It's been on one of those TV shows, and they offer private investigation. So we signed up and took the team out and did an investigation. We got there about when they were closing, because it is I don't want to say tourist trap, because before you investigate, you should go find out the history and things of the location. But they give tours there. Marianne and I went on the tour of the orphanage in Jenny Wade a couple of years prior, so we knew the history and things like that. So they were closing up during their last tour when we arrived, and we were asked to wait a little bit, and then we were ushered down into the basement,
mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
Marianne loves basements.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of basements, okay? I had recurring nightmares as a child about basements over and over. I guess that's why they call them recurring. But I just am terrified. To this day, I still run up the stairs whenever I'm in a basement by myself. Always. Even in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Even if it's a basement that has an exterior door
Yeah.
with
Even here at the
sunlight
house,
through
I'll hear her
windows, like
running
at
up
my
the
house.
steps.
So
Yeah.
this basement here caught me a little bit too.
Yeah.
And they're gonna make fun of
And
me.
I
with the,
completely forgot
recording.
about that fear. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, anyways, you know, as with most buildings, I don't know the percentage, but let's say almost every building that was standing during the battle, they became field hospitals. Orphanage building, same thing. There's a field hospital down in the basement. They believe that it's there's soldiers down there. They believe that there's children down there. And then you have the story of the lady who ran the orphanage, Rosa.
Rosa Carmichael.
Oh man, I tell you what, talk about evil. This lady, she was horrible, and you can look it up. I'm not going to go into details about it, but it was pretty bad. She would have another, you know, the older orphans help her manage the younger ones, and there was places down in that basement where you saw shackles on the wall, and they had the pit down there where they would put the poor little ones to punish them. So there's a lot of activity in that basement, and we experienced some heavy duty stuff. So let me show you some more pictures here. This actually is, as soon as you go down the steps, you're presented with that. And there's toys that people brought and left for the orphanage. And, you know, some of the claims is that they'll move and they'll play with the toys. We got a lot of EMF down in there. I mean, crazy stuff that I haven't seen before, just waves of it. And so this is, I think we're getting told the story we kind of just covered a little bit. And here's a pretty good picture. Now, this is Mary Ann's arm.
It is.
You see the hair standing up on there. This is as you go down the hallway into the pit. You were actually in the pit at this point?
Yes.
Just
you can see Andrea's foot there in the top right-hand corner a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Andrea and I were in the pit. Everybody else was out in the hallway of the, you know, of the pit area. And
see if it switches over here. This is actually the doorway that leads down that hallway.
right.
And you can see the Mel meter sitting there. Now, like I said, Mary Ann and I were there before, and we captured an EVP pretty close, just past the Mel meter there.
Yep.
And I had mentioned to Mike that one of the experiments that I wanted to do down there was an SB7 session, because we caught a little kid giggling, EVP, a couple years ago.
And talking. It wasn't just
Yeah.
a giggle. There were
And talking.
solid words there.
So we
Yeah.
wanted to see if we picked up anything on the SB7. And, you know, Mike, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Okay. Well,
We're well prepped here.
we were
I was in the pit with Andrea.
and we were right there in that little walkway leading back to it, and we got the SB7 going, and did the normal, you know, asked if they could tell us their name, and we got yes. And then there was a pause, and then we got the name Alexander.
And Andrea and I were in the pit, and we heard it say Alexander. And you guys were not quite so sure where you were, but when you listen back on the
Mhm.
recordings,
Yeah,
you're
if
like,
you
oh
ever
yeah.
used an SB7, sometimes, especially in a confined space, I mean, and it's hard to hear the SB7 sometimes, and you have to listen to it on playback. But they heard it down the hallway.
I always
So.
find it difficult to understand the SB7. I hate the SB7. Everybody else loves this thing. I hate it. But in the pit, where I was further away and kind of enclosed in that
So maybe
space,
that's what we have to do from now
I
on.
was
just
able
put
to
you down the
understand it
hallway
better.
so you can hear it.
maybe.
Maybe.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
it's possible.
I always find that I hear whenever it's coming, whenever it's speaking through the SB7, but I don't I don't grasp the words, because even though I'm looking for a response, I'm already listening for other noises, and I'm already thinking toward my next question. And, and so when you do get the response, it's like, wow. And then I'm going to have to make sure I listen for that after. But when we heard that, I asked if his family was from where his family was from, and it answered Virginia. So asked if there was anybody there with him. He said Sam. Mm-hmm. So right off, it's kind of cool. I'm having a conversation. He said, yeah, he'd tell me his name. His name was Alexander. His family was from Virginia. I was there with a friend named Sam. Asked if he ever had any ice cream. Said, I don't know.
Yeah, there was a couple other responses.
Yeah, but
those ones in the beginning, though, were like, whoa. Now, the thing is, while Mike and Lee were running SB7, Marianne was down in the pit area.
With Andrea.
We had a couple more still sitting in the back watching the toys, doing that thing. I had the video camera on Mike with those first few questions. And then I sat down right there by the millimeter, because that millimeter was going from 1.0 all the way up to 3.7. Then would come back down. Then it would go up again. So I was mounted on the meter itself, watching that fluctuation. Now, before we went back in that area, too, we have a little adapter for a cell phone. It's thermal. It's called Seek Camera. And as we were talking, what's that lady's name that was her?
Kendra.
Kendra. She was talking about cold spots and seeing shadows and everything. And Andrew was sitting there with the Seek camera. I don't have that video posted yet, but I forgot to do it. I'll do it later. But you could see the Seek camera, the temperatures and stuff changing, and it was just like a wave, a fluctuation of EMF and all this activity going on. But the video of that SB7 session and the fluctuations and stuff on the millimeter is actually, we have a video of that, and let's give that a watch now. For those of you watching us live, there is a link to that video down below on our resource page, where you can actually bring that up and watch that video and see the questions and responses that we got. It was pretty amazing. What did you get down in the pit? Because you kind of now see there was a lot of stuff going on at the orphanage. I know Andrew was complaining about a headache. I was freaking out towards the end, because in listening and watching the video and stuff, I'm like, hey, you guys, you want to take a 5-minute break? Because I was getting kind of like, woo, it's probably from that EMF. And what's weird about the meter that I want to add too is it was sitting on the basement floor. I mean, it wasn't around electrical and things like that, and it was just, I don't know if there's a vortex there or something that was just crazy.
Yeah. And some of the people in the chat room were asking what a millimeter is.
What a millimeter is?
A little bit.
What about an SB7?
Nobody wanted to know about that.
Well, I'll tell you what an SB7 and a millimeter is.
Okay. What's a SB7?
Well, first of all, an SB7 is a modified AM/FM radio that you can tell it to sweep the channels either forward or backward at a given rate. Okay? Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop at one channel. It sweeps the channel. So when you watch that video and you hear the response Virginia, it's actually over, I think, and I tried to slow the video down to count, but I think it's like 4 channels. It goes Virginia. So it's piecing together that white noise and that static going, and you ran it backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were running forward. Mm-hmm. It's piecing over that sweep of those channels, those responses. So that's what an SB7 is. It's a little modified AM/FM radio. Now, millimeter, the meter that you see in the video, has they have different versions. My version has a temperature module on it, which we saw a little bit of fluctuation on temperature. But what's weird when you watch that video, and I was getting ready to yell, "Guys, let's go!" It was stuck at 66.5.
Yeah.
If that hit 66.6, I was calling all clear. We were getting out of there because I don't even want to mess with that or have my friends mess with that. We're both ministers, and I don't want to mess with that. Okay, I'm telling you. So I was keeping an eye on that temperature, and it never hit 66.6. It jumped up and come down and things like that. But if it sticks on that, the temperature. Now, the top part of it is EMF. So if you see with K2s and stuff, that picks up electromagnetic field, which basically everything puts off the electromagnetic field. And the theory is when a entity tries to manifest, they use energy and they put off EMF fluctuation, or they can use that to manifest and use that energy. So a millimeter combines the temperature and EMF, and there's other versions that have different recorders in it, but they're pretty accurate readings that's on there. And to get up to a 3.7, that's like having a K2 hit almost, orange. So I didn't have the K2 sitting there. You guys, I think, had it with you, but.
And the millimeter, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was created by a gentleman whose daughter died, and he was trying
Is her name
find
Mel?
Melanie.
Yes,
Melanie.
Was I believe it was Melanie. He was trying to find a way to communicate with his daughter.
That's why it's called Mel meter.
That's why he called it that.
Yeah, and he does use it, and on the anniversary of her birthday, they use Mel meters to communicate with her.
Yes.
So it's actually kind of cool. So, anyways, all right, I answered those questions. Did I answer correctly? Anybody want to add anything to that? That's pretty accurate.
I'm
Yeah, if you want to know anything more about it, just look up milligauss,
Milligauss, yeah.
because that's what the readings are. They're measured in milligauss. So when you hear it's a 3.7, it's 3.7 milligauss.
And that's MILLIGAUSS, milligauss.
She
She's a
knows
winner.
Can you tell she's a teacher?
that. Yeah, she teaches by day. Can you tell? All right, so we were having fun down there in the basement. Wasn't even watching the time, and we had to go upstairs. While we were down in the basement, we had the field camera upstairs,
Yes.
and we had to switch.
You told me at the beginning, while you guys were getting organized in the basement, take the field camera, put it upstairs, and have Kendra show you where we're gonna do
Don't
stuff.
make it sound like I'm like give you all these orders all the time. Now, okay, I had my video camera, I had my recorder, I had this. I said, honey, could you take the field camera upstairs and set it up? Okay, I didn't give you orders. All right, but okay, I'm a big guy. In case you haven't noticed, when it comes to stairs, they're horrible. So we go upstairs. And I'm like, I forgot two things. One, I forgot I wanted to put the field camera in the basement while we were upstairs. And number two, I forgot my wife's fear of basements. So I said, honey, could you please put the field camera down in the basement? Oops.
So, of course, I want to face my fears. So I went down in the basement by myself in a haunted basement by myself.
Yeah.
With fears of basements in the basement by myself.
Okay,
And I
so-
put the field camera downstairs.
Our second EVP, which is on Divine Paranormal. Are they able to bring that page up now? I don't know. We had something right before break work. Okay. Anyways, the second EVP that's listed on Divine Paranormal's EVP collection is EVP number 26. Now, here's what happened. Marianne took the field camera downstairs, and did you say anything to him?
Yes. I took the field camera downstairs. I went to the base of the stairs. I went across in front of the seats. You saw all those benches. I went right in front of that, and I setting the camera up to point into the pit hallway. And I said, okay, so I'm putting the field camera here. So if you want to, and I heard this noise behind me in the corner, and I'm like, okay, I'm out of here.
So
I think I said, oh my gosh, I'm out of here. I'm going upstairs.
So that little snippet of recording is EVP number 26. I put it out there not because to make fun of her.
Yes, he did.
But because you can hear the noise. I mean, you hear the ding, 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 and then you hear her booting up the steps.
Yeah, it was definitely behind me in that corner.
Now, we have a lot of stuff from the orphanage. Okay, we have the seat footage. We're still listening to EVPs and things like that. And like I told you, we got a lot of stuff to go through. So we do have a lot more EVPs and things like that that's in our evidence review that our group has to go over first and kind of take a look. So, you know, if you watch us on Facebook and whatever, if we decide to do another show, if we get enough stuff, but we'll bring it back. I mean, you saw the picture of the hair standing up. I mean, that's pretty.
And I'm cold a lot, but I didn't have goosebumps. Normally, I'm like covered in goosebumps, but I didn't have goosebumps. My hair was standing straight up.
So upstairs, you did catch an EVP. You told me about it before, and I forgot though. We did the SB7 upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
We did.
But explain that again, what you told me. And I remember you told me before, but we got to get that on there.
We were upstairs, and the upstairs is like a big room. You have the kitchen area, and it's broken into the dining area.
I don't know if I had pictures of it.
And
I don't think I did.
I asked, can you tell us your name? And we got no. And then I go, Richard, because Richard was the little henchman
Of
of Rosa, who used to take pleasure in torturing the children, the orphans there. And he was affectionately nicknamed Stick Boy. Well, I asked, Richard, are you here? And it came out, I am Richard.
That was on SB7? Or
Yes.
Okay, SB7. We were getting, I know Andrew was down. I got to go back and look at that video. That's kind of like where I stopped. But Andrew was down on the opposite end of the
Right in the kitchen.
My
part.
stuff was like in the center. And Laura, Mom was sitting up on the, and you were up sitting up too.
Right.
And we were getting that weird. It would like come to my K2 and function, and Andrew's, and it was moving,
Yeah.
whatever
Bouncing
it
back
was.
and forth.
Yes.
And I do believe that I have that on video, but I haven't pulled all that up yet. And because I was panning the room with the video camera at the time. But that was kind of interesting upstairs. So we're getting ready to leave because we had to go across the street, down a little bit to Jenny Wade's house to do a thing. And of course,
Well,
we had to
while
get
we
the
were-
field camera again down in the basement. Marianne's like, no, I'm not going by myself. So Mike
well,
just,
I said I would, but
Mhm.
Mike said he would come and protect
Yeah.
me.
and Mike just made a comment on a break, which was kind of interesting. I wanted you to share with everybody about that basement. So
Well, when we went down to the basement, Marianne was getting the camera, and she was telling anyone that was there that this was their final chance to say something if they wanted to, or get their picture taken if they wanted to. And that basement had a completely different feel. It had a darker type of a feel to it from when we were down there earlier with the group, when it was just Marianne and I down there. It was really creepy. It was, to me anyway, it seemed like a completely different place. Like when we left and went upstairs, and there was just something dark just lurking around.
So we wrapped up and did our prayer out there on the steps of the orphanage, and that was really kind of like a mind-blowing experience. I mean, we've been a lot of places and a lot of really strange things have happened, but
Yeah,
that was
I've
like
gone,
2 hours of just nonstop.
I've gone all around like Hillview Manor by myself in the dark at night, putting stuff out for our events, and I never ran back.
Yeah.
And so I'm out of here.
That's
You know,
it.
that
I'm
basement, though, I'm telling you, with the orphanage, I was
So-
done with the basement.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if if it was that EMF wave or whatever, but I think Mike picked this place as being the most active there in the beginning. But what were your guys' thoughts about the orphanage? It was
extremely active, and
it was like a lot of intense stuff
in a very short amount of time.
Yes.
Because we were only there for 2 hours. And normally when we go places, we're in these places for 8, 9, 10 hours.
Able to take a break.
And maybe we'll get
yeah.
1 or 2 things. We were there for 2 hours and we had a lot of experiences.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So would you go back?
I've already been back and I'll go back again. I want to go. I want to try to face my fears again, try to go in the basement again by myself.
Well, we're going back for Sachs
I don't know
Bridge.
about leave me, but I
go back for sex.
I want to try. I want to try next time we go to pee down there for a minute by myself, like a full minute all by myself. That's my challenge to myself. If I make it past a minute, I'm good. Now, if that thing in the corner,
make it past a minute, you probably do too.
Probably.
Yeah.
If that thing in the corner stays quiet, I'll be all right.
The thing is, if you go to an orphanage yourself, okay, or your group or whatever, you go to an orphanage, you got to remember there's people who live in that building.
Yes, the
Okay,
second and third floor.
And we were reminded of that while we were down there, especially while we were listening to those recordings. You hear toilets being flushed, you could hear cell phones above you buzzing, and people walking, whatever the freak that was running up and down the thing. I think it was a cat
when we were
something.
there, it sounded like there was an animal running back and forth on the second floor. And we asked Kendra, we're like, do they have like pets? And she said, no, they don't have pets. They have a 13-year-old boy.
Teenagers.
And I'm like,
It was something faster than a 13-year-old
no,
boy,
that's not it.
It was flying.
But there are people who live there, and you do have to take that into account as well.
Yeah, but okay. So anyways, we said the prayer out on the steps and made our way down to Jenny Wade house, which to me, this is my personal opinion, was complete opposite turnaround from what we experienced down in that basement.
I agree.
And you would think that they would both be, hand in hand. Tell them about the house, not Jenny Wade, but tell them about the house.
What about the house? That it was a duplex?
Well, they call it the Jenny Wade house.
Okay. It is not the Jenny Wade house. Jenny Wade was never even a resident of that house. Her sister lived there. Her sister, her husband, they had moved into the one side of the duplex, and the McLeans were on the other side. And they shared the building. They had 2 separate entrances, 2 separate exits. Like any duplex, you had complete separation, even in the basement.
Now, for those of you who are, I don't know if I should bring up the name of these other ghost shows. Who cares, right? If you're a Ghost Adventures fan and you've seen the episode with Zach in the basement and he got his butt grabbed, this is the house we're talking about. Okay, that's the Jenny Wade house. They call it the Jenny Wade. Actually, it's called the Jenny Wade House and Museum because that's where she was killed.
Right.
So here's a picture of the house.
But she didn't live there.
No.
It was actually her sister's place.
And her sister actually, on June 26th, gave birth to little baby Lewis.
Yes.
And we investigated on June 26th. So the first thing that we did, and this is the room where Carolyn, is that her name?
Georgia
gave birth.
This is the room where Georgia gave birth to little baby Lewis. We actually, before we got started, we all sat around there and sang happy birthday to little baby Lewis.
We did.
On his birthday. That was kind of cool. I want to make a video of that and get that posted. I haven't had time to do that yet, but that was pretty neat. And right there where I'm sitting, I took that picture, but probably about 2.5, maybe 3 feet from there is where Jenny Wade actually passed away.
Yes, to your left of this view, about 3 feet to the left.
So why don't you go ahead and share the story of Jenny Wade a little bit?
Okay, so Jenny Wade was actually not her name.
Actually, right there when this picture comes up. Right there where Mary Ann's sitting is where Jenny Wade passed away. So
Yeah, she fell to the floor there. Facing the other direction, of course. I was facing the door. She was kneading bread at the time, so she was using that dough board behind me. But Jenny Wade was not actually her name at all. It was actually Mary Virginia Wade. And her mother's name was Mary as well. So that's, I'm assuming that's why they called her Ginny. And someone got it wrong in the newspaper. And so now everybody calls her Jenny instead of Ginny. But she was left at home to watch her younger brothers and the ward that they took care of while her mother went down to help her sister and this newborn baby, because her husband's off at war, so she needs some help. Well, at some point throughout the time, she is going to go to George's house for safety. The Confederates are knocking at her back door, basically, and it's safer to go towards the Union soldier. So her sister's house is a couple blocks closer, and so she's going to go there. She does have a fiance, supposedly, but at least an acquaintance, boyfriend type acquaintance, Johnston Jack Skelly. He is off at war.
Well, they were childhood friends.
And her and another boy named Wesley Culp, they were childhood friends. They hung out together. They played together. They went to school together. Johnston is off fighting for the Union. Her other friend, Wesley, is fighting for the Confederacy. He's fighting for the Confederacy because he actually moved down south for his job and ended up becoming part of the local militia, and they were called into battle, and you went. And so his friend was wounded in the battle. He finds him and he's like, oh my gosh, Johnston, how are you? What can I do for you? And basically he says, get this letter to Ginny. And so he entrusts Wesley to take this letter to Jenny. And none of them will actually live. Wesley Culp dies on his uncle's property at the Battle of Culp's Hill. Johnston dies in a military hospital down in a field hospital, and Jenny is going to die in her sister Georgia's house during the Battle of Gettysburg. So none of them ever know that the others die. It's just a sad story, if you ask me. I don't know.
Well, the morning that Jenny passed away, she was actually in the kitchen with her mother baking bread for the Union soldiers that were behind her house, basically. And she made a comment that if anybody was going in the house was going to die that day, she'd hope it'd be her, because her sister just had a little baby. And at 8:30, is it 8 or 8:30?
It is.
It's controversial.
Controversial whether it's 8 or 8:30. Original record said that it was 8:30. New information has come to light in the last couple years where it may have actually been 8 o'clock.
Which the time is somewhat important. From a little tidbit that we found out is normally that early in the morning there's not much fighting going on. Okay. The only thing that would be going on would be sharpshooters would be taking target practice and sighting in their guns. Okay. Now it's believed because they haven't proved it just yet or whatever, that a Confederate soldier, I heard before that they were trying to sight up the gun on the door handle of the house.
See how close they can get.
Yeah, see how close they get to it. They fired a shot from the Farnsworth house, the attic, towards the house where Jenny was, and she thought she just opened both doors to kind of protect herself from sharpshooters.
So the two
And,
doors he's talking about are the front door.
Yeah.
And right there.
And the door going into
And-
the front room.
To where Georgia and the baby were.
Right. So shot was fired, went through both doors, hit Jenny in the back, and pretty much instantly killed her. And she was the only civilian that was killed during the Battle of Gettysburg. So that is the original door, and that's the original bullet hole that went through that door. There's a little legend about that bullet hole. Is it that one or the second?
It's the second one. But this one here also that you were seeing as well, it's kind of getting a little bit bigger with age because people put their fingers in it to see. But the one that's the interior door that was literally the last thing that the bullet went through before it went into Jenny, there is a legend that if you are unmarried, if you put your ring finger in that hole, you will get married. I don't know if it's within the year, but you're definitely going to get married soon. And they've had people who've done it and they've sent letters that with their wedding pictures. Yeah, it worked. It happened, but there is that legend. And the theory behind it is that Jenny didn't get to experience her wedding and have her life, a nice, happy life. She is helping others to get that happiness. So
Terrible legend.
Yeah.
Not all legends can be great, but
So during our investigation there at the Jenny Wade house, we didn't get much of anything. We did have a little bit of flashlight play in the kitchen there.
it wasn't extremely on command though,
No, it
and
was,
that bothers me.
it was a little off.
Yeah.
But it did seem rather quiet.
Yeah, calm down. And,
Yeah.
like I mentioned before about Sachs Bridge, I'm not a sensitive or whatever, but if you go, you get that feeling like there's just something going on or somebody's watching you or something. And there was really just nothing there. In fact, the investigation started in the front room, went to the kitchen, then went upstairs,
And then we went
and then went down in the
basement.
basement. And after the kitchen, I'm like, I'll be outside. I didn't. You guys didn't get anything upstars at all.
Nope. And then when we went in the basement, we didn't get anything either.
No.
And actually, we were warned. I forgot about this. In the front room, after we sang "Happy Birthday," we were actually kind of warned about the basement, about Mr. Wade coming around. He don't like guys. Okay, and that's supposedly the one that attacked Zach and everything. So my wife over there, she has to stir the pot and ask the question during the EVP session about.
I wanted to know.
Yeah, you wanna talk
Inquiring
about that?
minds want to know. All right. So I was telling you the story about Jenny and how she was, supposed to be watching her little brothers and, well, her youngest brother was conceived and born while her father was away in an institution.
So
So
she
who
has to
is
ask
the
who
daddy?
the baby daddy is.
I did. So
Yeah.
I asked the mother.
Okay.
She was
Tick off
supposedly
Mr.
there.
Wade down in the basement for the men folk to come down and get tortured.
I wanted to know.
Talk about a long period of consumption.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 years. That's-
So Mr. Wade, actually, he was arrested for over a matter of $300.
Which he found in the street and he just
found in the
didn't
street.
return.
Instead of giving it to somebody, he decided he's just going to go spend it and have a good time. So they arrested him, sent him away for 3 years, 3 years to Eastern State
2
Penitentiary.
years. Eastern State.
Yeah.
Solitary confinement.
Made him go nuts when he came back. Old mama, Mrs. Wade, had him committed.
Yes.
So
And while
he wasn't there during the
committed,
battle.
and while he was committed, she conceived Jenny's little brother.
So it's believed that he haunts Jenny Wade's house over, I forget the word that Kendall, whatever used, but because he wasn't there to help protect the family.
Yeah, it was the last place that
Shame.
his two
That's what she
daughters were
said.
together.
Over shame, that's why he's there haunting. So,
But he didn't really do anything that night at all. He left you alone.
yeah, he did.
He didn't talk to me.
I was all surprised. They said that, I was really expecting him to come over and introduce himself and say hello. And maybe tickle my ear or something like that.
We don't
you
know
know,
why it
No.
was so quiet there. I mean, was it because it was the birth date and they were off celebrating?
And see,
Was
I thought
don't
it was
know.
going to be opposite that. I really thought it was going to be pretty active because it was the birthday.
Yeah.
We've heard that one of the claims for that house is that, you know, Georgia and the baby can be heard and seen on anniversaries.
Yeah.
This was an anniversary. It was
Most
the
definitely.
baby's birthday. So I really expected to
I would
see.
like to go
or
back
hear
there.
something.
We've been there before on a tour. Now we've investigated it, but I would like to go back maybe on a different date, just to see. You know, now we know that 26 was the birth date. You know, just to see, to kind of compare that theory, whether it was the date or not. But I don't know. We'll put it on the bucket list.
And I'd like to do that one first, and then
Flip
go, because we did Jenny Wade and the orphanage on the same day, and I'd like to flip them because last time we went, we did the orphanage and then Jenny Wade also, and we didn't get a lot of activity then either. So
Sure.
maybe they're more active earlier
Sure,
in the evening.
Right.
could be.
So I want to try that too.
So, what are your guys' thoughts?
They might have been sleeping.
Sleeping.
Yeah.
Is that your thoughts? You were sleeping?
Yeah. Yeah. It must have been.
I don't know.
I
They were
mean-
just calm.
It was calm. I mean, but anyone who investigates paranormal, you know, if we're being honest about it, they realize that, you know what, you just don't get something every time out of the box. Sometimes, you know, you can go there one day and it can just be off the hook crazy.
We could go back to the orphanage and be dead.
Sure.
Absolutely
I use that word dead again.
Yeah.
Non-active.
non-active.
I think they get the idea.
They get it? All right.
But yeah,
Sorry, just trying to.
That's just the way. That's just the way it seems. I mean,
All right, so the following day we went to Devil's Den. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we traveled out to a location out on a battlefield the following day, Devil's Den, and this is another one of the claimed most active places in Gettysburg. And
They
did
have
you
a lot
have your
of
recorder going at Devil's Den?
mm-hmm. I have it going
course
all
you
the
did.
time.
Yeah, it's just nonstop.
Why do you ask such
How do you-
stupid questions?
How do you like? Is it just like, how do you not run out of batteries? Oh, you do.
We do. That's why we carry an Econo case
Of batteries.
of batteries with us. Yes.
Okay, well, Devil's Den is actually a cool place to go. I mean, you gotta stop there. So we stopped, and of course, Marianne did one of their patented timed pictures with Devil's Den there in the background. Kind of looks like that big rock's gonna fall on us
Mm-hmm.
there.
Hey, I like those timed things. They're fun. And you guys got some good shots of me running back towards you, too.
Yeah, but I don't have them here. Then we climbed up on top. That's shooting down below. Okay, now this is up behind Devil's Den, which is kind of a interesting spot. And if you don't know anything about these locations, okay, another area like out in the battlefield was Devil's Den and Little Round Top. Okay, so the Confederates were trying to take Little Round Top. They were down in Devil's Den, and that's the snipers post there for the Confederates. And if they could have took that, it would have changed that was the southern end of the Union flank. And there's several battles between Devil's Den and Little Round Top is called the Slaughter Pit, where Slaughter Pen, where several individuals lost their lives there. And but Devil's Den, the day we were there, was just packed. There was Boy Scouts there, there was Rangers there was other people climbing up on the rocks and doing all kinds of stuff. So there's a photograph. Actually, it's on I think this is it here. It's on one of their placards. Is it there?
Mm-hmm.
It talks about the slaughter pen.
It sure does.
But there's a famous photograph. This should be it coming up here. Okay. And that's right where Mike was standing behind that little rock barricade there. You want to tell them about this photograph? We have a blog post about this too. There's a link to the blog post. You want to tell them about that photo? You did the research on that blog post. So.
I did do some research.
There's
on
a little
that.
controversy about that picture.
Yes. See that dead guy? That wasn't his only death location.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he was moved around there a couple times.
Brian
Yes.
Williams was there.
Oh, stop it. One of the photographers who came into town took some photographs, and he took a little bit of creative license, should we say, and he found a better location for the dead guy to move him to. I don't know who that particular soldier was, but for some reason, he wasn't quite as ripe, bloated, and distorted as some of the others who were lying dead on the battlefield. And so they said, let's pick him.
Yeah.
And so they
So
picked
they
him up and
staged
they
the
moved
photo.
him to a new location. And the one that is the most famous is actually the staged location.
Yeah.
So
that's actually a staged
yes,
photo. Of
Yes.
course, we had to take our picture
of course we
there.
did.
We didn't lay down because we had our crispy new Dark Shadow Ghost Tour shirts on. We didn't want to
Yeah.
get dirty.
Yes,
Mary Ann says she wants to go back and actually.
I do.
in
I want to lay
position.
there. I'm
So-
creepy. I know.
From Devil's Den, we traveled up the little mountain
Little
there
round top.
to Little Round Top. These pictures are not changing. There we go. There's our group there. I like that picture. I don't know why. You got the kids in the back photo bombing. And this is up one of the monuments you can actually climb up in, and
It's like a castle.
yeah, you can actually overlook. There in the distance is actually Devil's Den. Then we had paparazzi that was there.
Hiding in the trees.
Hiding in the trees. That's Laura. She's popping off pictures. And there's another shot of Devil's Den from up on top. So that's where the Confederates were, and they were coming up that hill. And Union soldiers were just picking them off left and right.
Oh yeah, because they had the best. They had the best sharpshooters. They had the good ones.
Yeah. And that's the history here. I tell you what, we were up on a Little Round Top, and those people aren't watching this, so I could talk about them. It's sad the history that these kids are learning nowadays, but yeah. Anyways, they were saying the bad people were below and the good people were up top, and
Yeah,
we were just listening to them, just shaking our heads. And
yeah. It wasn't the Union and the Confederates
yeah,
and the
the good and
soldiers.
the bad, and
It was the good guys were up here and the bad guys were down there, and the good guys had all the best shooters. They were shooting people that were going by this house that was probably
20
10 miles out there as the crow flies.
And don't forget all those rocks. Somebody just brought those there.
Oh yeah. Somebody just brought the rocks and dumped them
Devil's
off.
Den rocks. Somebody
That's
just
a
dropped
dad
them.
actually said that to his son when he asked him a question. But anyways, here's a little rock formation that Mike was down there, and he was yelling Wilma from Fred Flintstone. Everyone's kind of like looking at him like, okay,
Like, are you serious?
who are these people? So Devil's Den, we really didn't get much there except for that photo. That was kind of cool. Little Round Top. Were you recording up there? Of course he was. Why do I
course
keep
I was.
asking?
I don't know why you keep asking.
I know. And that leads us to when we went. How many days later did we go to the railroad cut? Because that wasn't the same day.
Yeah, because it
Was
was
it the same
it
day?
was that Friday because we left here.
No, because we have different shirts on.
Hmm.
See?
Yeah, we went there
So
2 days
Saturday it
later.
rained?
Saturday it rained. And then
Saturday
Sunday
was
we
the
went there.
typhoon rain. The guys stayed at the farmhouse, and
That's when we
my
had
man
Sunday
Mike
lunch.
here cooked this smoked this ham. I tell you what, it was awesome. While the girls were out shopping and getting drenched, we just stayed at the farmhouse and cooked that ham all day and chilled out.
Shopping.
Yeah. They were out getting their shopping on out in the
That's right.
torrential downpour. That was Saturday. Sunday, this was Sunday. All right, so we're bringing you to Sunday. Skipped a couple days. Sunday, I wanted to go up to the railroad cut, which is another famous paranormal location where there's supposed to be a lot of activity up there. That's just north of, well, everywhere was the battlefield, but anywhere, it's just north of Lee's headquarters. And this is basically where it all started, up in this area. And there is a section they call the railroad cut. There's a bridge that goes over it. And historically, what had happened was the Confederates retreated. They went down in this railroad cut. And I think the railroad was not there yet. It was just dug out. So they went down in there thinking that they would have the element of surprise and protection, and they couldn't get back out of it. And they were basically stuck and
Fish in a barrel.
Yeah, fish in a barrel. So there's a lot of paranormal activity reported there. So we went down to do an investigation. We also went to I don't know if I have pictures of it, but there is a video on our YouTube channel of photos from all this. We went to the Eternal Peace Memorial, which is just north of that.
Eternal Lake Peace.
And that was actually kind of cool too. But so here we are. We're heading towards the railroad cut.
Is that the Eternal
Peace Light Memorial is actually
is
behind
behind
that.
us? Is behind that picture.
Yep.
And we're heading towards the railroad cut.
So one of these pictures are not switching. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So this is, we went down under the bridge, and you could see how that goes down in there. And we went down to do an EVP session. Now, when we start off an EVP session, we kind of go around and say our names, where we're at, the date, that kind of thing, because that tags the recordings. And it also gives a sample of what our voice sounds like on that recording in that area. Now, when we started that EVP session there, we went around and you listen, and I got it on both of our recordings. Is it on yours too, with your voice being? When Mike said his name, it was like weird. It was like real high pitched. My name is Mike. You know, it's like, really, what? You know, and I know you didn't do it when we were there, but all the recordings caught that and kind of messed it up. And then we had little Mikey with us, and he said, I am Michael.
And, you know, this is Andrew's son, you know, and he, you know, he's feeling his way through all this, you know.
Yeah, he's like a junior cadet paranormal investigator. He's coming along.
Whenever it was brought up, you know, and whenever it was his turn, he said, "Hi, my name's Mike."
But you caught something. We don't have that out there yet. You caught something out there.
And after he said that, I got a really low whispered voice that says, "Michael." So that was pretty cool. I need to isolate that and share it over.
Get that out there. But so, and then of course Mike and I, we were, you know, we had to sing Dixie.
Yes, we did. We sang Dixie.
And then you can see a little bit more of the railroad cut, but that's did it go through them? No. For some reason it's not showing these pictures. Anyways, well, there it goes. It just switched. Okay. I wanted to show you the other end of the railroad cut. There it is. So that's the gully or, well, railroad cut where they went down in. Union came up on them, and basically that was it.
I mean, you know, it's hard to believe. I mean, when we were there, yeah, naturally there's a nice new bridge over the top. That bridge wasn't there during the battle.
No.
It was just a a big gully, you know, that was cut into the ground to make way for the railroad tracks. And, you know, those guys during a retreat, when they backed up into there, that was it. You know, they were just easy targets.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would ever think that going down so that you have people who could come up over the top of you and shoot you would be a good choice. But they did that a lot in Gettysburg.
Yeah. Yes.
Same thing over there at Little Round Top. Let's stay down below.
So when we come back up on the bridge, we saw off in the distance by Seminary Ridge, we saw a reenactment going on. Of course, they had to do a double take. It was like, oh, really? Is that a whole regiment? And we're seeing apparitions. And then we saw some guy come out in shorts. We knew.
Yeah, the cannons and the rifles.
Yeah.
So there was and then we saw like there was an encampment up there. And we decided, hey, let's go check that out. And we went up there. We had to wait a little bit. We had some fun. And,
of course we did.
About after an hour and a half or so like that, they actually did a battle reenactment. And that's where some of the pictures like we used for some of the marketing, those are pictures that we took from that reenactment. You know, the Confederates coming in and firing their guns. And
yeah, they were kind of actually practicing because remember, July 1, 2, 3 is the anniversary. And so they always have a reenactment week. And some of the reenacting soldiers were there already, and they were doing their practicing. They ended up canceling it this year and postponing it until August. So we got to see this.
There were still people there.
There's still people there, but the major reenactments, they canceled them. There's obviously people that were still going to go there and be dressed up and so forth and do their little things. But the big battle reenactments, they canceled them until August because the weather had been so wet and rainy all season, and they were worried about whether or not the horses and everything could really.
And out there, it rains every other day.
Every other day for the whole month is pretty much how it rained there. So we got to see some of those reenactments in their practice mode, and I thought it went pretty neat.
Marianne even got to dig a bullet out of a leg at that Confederate field doctors.
Yes, I did. That's right.
Boy,
that picture, she's got this big smile on her face.
Oh yeah, what a happy individual, to shove a set of forceps into a gaping wound in a leg and yank a chunk of lead out.
All right, so that oh my God, I sleep next to her.
Oh. Well, at least you'll have the Benadryl queen.
Michael.
That had to come up.
Okay, moving on.
All right, so
moving on.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our last break of the evening. So if you have questions, please ask us your questions.
Yeah, because I've already answered most of the questions that have come up in the show. So I only have one left.
Okay. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the farmhouse and just a little bit about the farmhouse broadcast, because we have a whole nother video already out there that you can actually go and actually take part in the ghost hunt. You could still go there and watch that. And if you see anything on the cameras, you comment and we can go check it out and all that stuff.
Yep.
But we did catch a little bit at the farmhouse. Now, I'll tell you more when we come back.
Yeah.
But so if you have questions, please leave them below. We need that to finish up. And we will be back shortly.
My wife Lee is manning the comments over here. She's the one that's off camera.
She's actually looking for something right now to chuck at him.
She's getting bored over there. You guys
little
gotta
does
write
she
her
know
some
we
questions.
moved all hard objects away from that area because we knew that this could. She starts chucking Oreos,
Oh.
We could try to catch those.
So just between us, she needs to be busy.
Yeah.
So
she wants questions
to get your entry in to win a free T-shirt, you need to sit there and blitz the phone, the computer line. And
you have to be on live to ask the question. So if you're watching this video after it's been edited, it's too late.
Right.
You already lost out. You weren't here
true.
for the live production.
So put her to work over there.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll be back in about 5 minutes. See you in a bit.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, guys, we're back, and this is going to be our wrap-up session. Last one. So if you've got questions, keep them coming there. Lee's over there typing away.
Yep.
So hopefully we're getting some questions.
She's talking her fingers off.
All right. So the last day that we were in Gettysburg, we decided beforehand that we were going to investigate the place where we stayed. Now, we have no history, no claims, nothing about the place, but we did know that it was close to Eastern Cavalry Cemetery. Battlefield. Eastern Cavalry Battlefield. And we did know that part of the fields were
Adjacent.
battlefield. Part of them in the back there were battlefield. So, you put two and two together, there had to have been soldiers where the house sits, even though it was built in the 1900s.
Right.
So we thought we're going to catch something, maybe, hopefully. We kept watching all of that back porch all the time, looking for something to walk out of that tree line.
I'm still waiting for my full-bodied apparition.
Yeah. So we broadcast live from the farmhouse that our virtual ghost hunt. It's actually out there. Was the second one we did. So it's listed out there. You can go watch it and take part in that still. We had a camera that was fixed in the dining room area where I showed you those pictures in the beginning was our command central. We had a camera that was in the barn. We had a camera that shot down like a road that went out into the field. And then we had a camera that was shooting at the tree line, but it got so dark. I don't know. We tried to put additional lights out there. I don't know if you see much out there or not. And then we broke up into two separate teams, the guys and the girls, basically. And we investigated those areas except for the barn. The girls went in the barn and told us there were bats, so we didn't go in there.
There were a ton of bats in there, and they were very talkative. It was the whole time. It was crazy.
Yeah. So, we had a good time with that, and I'm like, I don't think we need.
Yeah, I don't like basements. Andrea does not like bats.
Yeah. Did you guys go out on that path?
We did not. You guys did
So
the
we
outside.
did the path. You guys did the barn.
Right.
Basically.
And we both did the
Dining room.
Okay.
So we did a little bit of setup. We had to put out all the cameras and everything. And, we watch all the ghost shows on TV, and they always show them setting up. And we said, we've never shown you when we set up before.
We never showed you how to
just
set up,
do it and get it done. And then we decided this time that we would do that. So we have a couple pictures to show you of us doing some setup work. So there's Mr. Sean setting up all the cameras.
Getting the cameras ready to go. And you can see there we're sitting on the back porch.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's a great porch.
It was a little damp out because this was the day after the monsoon hit.
It was the day after the monsoon.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is that roadway that went back. And Mike and I went out and did SB7 session out there.
Yes, we did.
And there's the girls that are running the video cables. And we had a lot of video cables. I don't know how many feet we used, but it was a lot.
Yeah, and I felt it was a little chilly. So I put on my new spiffy ghost hunting pants that I got in town that says "Got Ghosts Gettysburg Does" on the front. It says Gettysburg Does, but I had to roll them up because I didn't want my new pants to get all dirty in the mud.
There's our little pictures, little trigger object we put there in the barn.
Mm-hmm. The bats did not play with the ball.
No. You guys didn't see the bats in there when you were running the cables?
Nope.
No?
We weren't looking up though.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of tend to do high.
There's the camera that's shooting out at the
tree line. Over a cornfield.
You see there we had an additional flashlight there trying to get some more light out there. Pants. So that was our setup. And you could, like I said, you could go watch the investigation. We popped in and said what we found and things like that. We're still going over some of the evidence from the farmhouse, but Mary Ann did listen to the SB7, and you got a name, right, from our SB7. Did you listen to it yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did you get that same name?
I
Who the commander was?
think there might have been a first and a last name, but
See,
We
I got
got
it first.
August.
Yeah, you guys asked the question, who is your
Who's your
commanding
commanding
officer? And immediately the SB7 goes, August.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
like, okay.
And then there was some EVPs that you guys got in the dining room that are posted out there in our evidence
Mhm.
review. We got to finish going over that stuff.
And we got flashlight stuff going on in
Flashlight.
the
Right.
dining room as well.
Did you video the flashlight?
We did not.
So, okay.
But it was but the DVR was on, so theoretically
On the
it's
DVR.
on video.
So we need to match
theoretically.
the DVR video up to the audio.
Right.
Sounds like a tech guy's job, right?
I think it sounds like a
Mhm.
tech guy's job.
oh yeah.
So we investigated how long? About 4 or 5 hours? 4 hours. I don't remember how long that video is. I think it was about 4
it
hours.
was after our show, our radio show segment. We
Yeah, it was a
went
busy
out,
day.
set up, and then we investigated till about 2 maybe.
We left, and I haven't shared it with these guys yet, but we actually took the field camera and the recorder up to the bedroom that we stayed in, and there's some. Yeah, we slept there.
We did.
We
See,
want to go back.
Stairs and messing with me when I'm sleeping. No, anything else, whatever. But
But you weren't sleeping there at the
no,
time,
I
so
wasn't
they weren't
sleeping. You're
messing
right.
with
I
you.
wasn't sleeping at the time.
They thought it was
We were
perfect
going
timing.
marathon nonstop. So when it was time to go to bed, I was out. You know, same story with the Queen Mary in Long Beach. We get out there to investigate. I'm out. Didn't experience anything. Anyways, what do you guys think about where we stayed?
I liked
From
the
a-
place.
From a paranormal.
From a paranormal, I was surprised that we got any responses because we didn't have any paranormal claims for the location. So I was excited that we got anything.
Yeah. I think that
Probably
it
nobody's
was
ever
good.
investigated it.
Right. And that's something also, now that you mentioned that, we were Andrea and I and Lee and Laura, we all went into the dining room area first. And Andrea was great. She immediately thought about the fact that nobody had probably ever investigated there. And so she explained how to use each of those items, and don't be afraid of them. And if you turn it this way, it does this. She did a fantastic job of explaining how to use those items. And then when we came out, you guys were like, I wonder if they even knew how to use any of that stuff. And we're
Well,
like,
you guys taught them. So
we
great.
told you. We told them how to do it. And they're like, oh, you did? That's fantastic. So
Did we leave passwords?
we did leave passwords. We didn't get any
Okay.
response back from them.
We're not finished reviewing. That was the last day, so we're still going over that stuff. And, we might have to have a second show. It'll be shorter, but we find more stuff,
If we find more.
right?
Yeah.
All right. So then the sad moment came. It was sad.
It was sad.
The rest of the team had to head back, and Mary and I were
We were going to head off.
we were going to head off to Philadelphia, and because we wanted to go there, we didn't make it on our honeymoon. This was our anniversary trip, anyways. But of course, we decided. Well, my wife wanted a few things, and I said, "Okay, dear, it's your anniversary." First, she wanted to get a picture taken using an old vintage
I wanted
camera,
to do the wet plate photography,
which we did.
which we did, and Lee's going to
Actually-
hand that to me. I got my wet plate photo.
That's actually not film.
Woo.
That's actually on a. She says it's glass. I think it's tin.
tin glass. I'm
Oh.
trying to make it so that the shadow,
There's no
you
glare.
can see the actual picture. But we
We
went
posted
there.
that on our Facebook. page,
Victorian
so.
choice photography, old Victorian photography. fantastic. Tish did a wonderful job. She was great.
So we
Showed me how
ended
to
up
do it.
staying
Love it.
another night for the photo.
Yes,
And
yes,
then
we did.
she wanted to go to the Farnsworth house. So we
I
stayed at
did.
the Farnsworth house. We stayed there before, and she wanted to go in the attic in the basement. I was like, yes, dear, whatever you want to do. And
Remember,
then-
I said before I left, I had several things on my list that I wanted
those
to
were on our
do.
list.
Gettysburg
So-
Address, Farnsworth House, picture.
So we did.
Mr. G's.
We went on the
Mr. G's. Yep,
tour of the basement and the
Attic.
attic, and
we
the
did.
Grove, and you want to tell them about the Farnsworth house? Some stuff you found so far?
Sure. We stayed in 2 different rooms in the Farnsworth house this time. 2 years ago, we stayed in a different one. So we've now slept in 3 of their, I think, 13 rooms that they have in the building. And so this time we stayed in Eisenhower on the first night and then Lincoln on the second night. And they named their rooms, by the way, by people who were important in the wartime or about people who like to frequent there, or people who died there, or people who own the house.
Which Farnsworth never owned the
No,
house. It's
they
just
never.
named
It was named after a general.
Farnsworth. The Sweeneys.
Yep, the Sweeneys owned it during the war. Yes.
Paranormal claims. I know Farnsworth House is actually out there on Panic D, but they claim that they have 6 to 8 entities in that house. It's one of the most active locations. Ghost hunters have been there.
Mhm.
But there's 2 little kids there, Jeffrey and what's the little girl's name?
Sissy.
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 Jeffrey
Sissy.
was killed right outside of the Farnsworth. Well, he was injured outside of the Farnsworth. He was playing chicken with some of the older boys where they run out and
Front of the carriages.
slap the horses, and he got ran over by a carriage, and they brought him in. He actually died in the house.
Yes.
The other girl, Sassy, something like that.
Sissy, I believe
Sweeney.
it's
She was
Sissy.
a Sweeney girl. She
She
died.
of a respiratory infection.
Yeah, in the house. And then, of course, Farnsworth House was a building that was there, so it was a field hospital. So you
Right.
got soldiers in there and everything, and it is believed that's where the shot came from that
Killed Jenny.
killed Jenny Wade. So
Mhm.
we went up in the attic, and when we were up in the attic on one of the tours. It was just a tour. I don't know how many people were with us, maybe about 8.
8. I was going to say 8.
We're sitting there, guys talking, telling, stories, whatever, and the door just opened right up. And he goes, yep, that's probably Jeffrey coming to join us. I mean, and
Jeremy.
that door was
Jeremy.
forced, Jeremy. The door was forced shut because there's people staying there,
Right.
trying to cut down the noise, and it just opened right up, which was kind of cool. But tell them about
I was going to say in the basement, it was the opposite. The door slammed shut.
Yeah.
Well, we were doing our investigation because we did one tour and then we did one investigation.
Well, while we were on tour in the basement, I'm sitting to the left of Mary Ann, and I'm sitting there, and it's just a tour. They're just telling me ghost stories. And I thought she was playing with my leg with her foot. And I'm like looking at her,
What's this?
But about
Yeah.
10 minutes before that, I felt something touch the back of my leg too.
Yeah.
But I thought
Yeah,
it was
so-
a bug.
So when the lady was
But
done talking,
I didn't
I'm like,
feel
what are you
anything.
doing? What are you, like, screwing with me? She goes, I didn't touch you. And that's one of the claims. Jeremy comes down there and plays with the back of people's legs.
Pant
So-
legs, but I wasn't wearing any pants. I was wearing shorts. So
I
there
wasn't
were
wearing
no
pants
like
either, but-
there weren't any like pants to play with. So what's left?
So they
My
offer
leg.
a ghost hunt. Of course, we had to do it.
Of course we did.
But it's not like what we do when we go paranormal investigation. They actually show people how to do it. And there was Marianne and I and another couple.
Yes.
And they never been out doing the paranormal investigation at all.
Ever.
So the
They
guy
were
sitting there,
paranormal versions.
he's going through equipment. This is a K2 meter. These are divining rods and a digital recorder and all of this stuff. So he goes, here's a digital recorder. I held
We
mine
pulled
up.
ours out.
Here's a K2 meter. Yeah,
We
I
pulled
got
it
one.
out.
So we're going through all this stuff, and then we said, we're paranormal investigators. Do you mind if we tag this like we normally do an EVP session? The guy goes, sure, go ahead, whatever. So we kind of like took over,
Yeah, he just kind of sat in the corner then.
and we go around the room and we tag it and start the EVP session. Mary Ann goes in the back with the flashlight. You want to tell them what happened?
Well, I started asking questions, and I set the mog light up. I sat it on the bench. There's a entity back there named Michael, who's a soldier who's supposed to hang out back there. He's not supposed to be very friendly though, but if it was Michael, he was awfully friendly because he was answering all my questions. But I asked, if I told him I was a school teacher because that's a trigger object for some of these entities, supposedly school teachers and nurses. So I told him I was a school teacher and I teach science. Did you ever take a science class? And the light went on.
She's back there carrying on a conversation with this entity with the flashlight, and I'm just like, okay, whatever, we're used to it. The girl that was she was freaking out.
Yes.
And it was like, really? And Mary's just going on. Okay, can you shut it off? It goes off. She goes, no way. And then it started raining.
Yes.
And we're down there, we're just doing our thing, and the door slammed shut. Bam! And I thought that girl was going to have a stroke. She was like, I'm done.
Yeah,
she was.
She said she was done.
And I'm like, okay, well, can we just finish?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. So, it was a good time. We haven't gone over everything yet, but we'll get that out there.
But we stayed there 2 nights.
Yes. Okay. Tell them.
I have 2 stories real quick. We stayed there 2 nights, 2 different rooms. The first night we stayed in the Eisenhower room, and one of the claims is that you're sleeping and something holds you down, you can't get up, or you hear the door open, footsteps come in, somebody sits down in bed with you, lays down, and you think it's your spouse, but it wasn't really them. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm laying down, I'm sleeping, and I wake up and I feel pressure on my upper chest, and I'm like, yes, this is it, because I really want the experiences. So I'm like, yes, and I went to tell my husband, and I woke up. So I was dreaming that I was having a paranormal experience.
I'm glad she didn't wake me up.
I was like, because I was laying there in my sleep state, being pressed down, and I'm like, ooh, I got to wake up my husband. So I couldn't move here. So I went to move down a little further, like with my leg, and I tried to do that, and I woke myself up, and so my paranormal experience was for naught. I dreamt it. I was so disappointed. I just rolled back over and went back to sleep. And then the next morning, I told him, I'm like, I dreamt of a paranormal. So anyways,
she dreamt she had sleep paralysis.
I did. So then the second night we stayed in the Lincoln room, and I decided. By the way,
the bed was this high.
It wasn't that high, but it did come to here. There's a picture of me standing next to the bed, and the bed comes to here on me. But we slept there. I left trigger objects out that night. Nothing happened. I put some quarters out, laid them out, because a claim in that room is that they'll stack them back up. So I laid those out. Nothing happened. But anyhow, I decided that next morning I did. I'm like exhausted. Into this. I'm into testing things. I want to see the results. So I left a recorder running then when we went to breakfast that next morning. So I set it on the nightstand. We left, you hear the door close, and like 30 seconds later, you hear something like going over the microphone. Like, when like something like brushed up against it or something. And it happened a few times on that. And then there's a spot
where I slept.
Yeah, but but you weren't sleeping then. We weren't even in the room at that point, so that's kind of interesting.
The only claims that we heard about the Lincoln room is sometimes while you're laying there, you'll just see soldiers walking right through you.
Yeah, because that was the garden area at the time. So yeah, and
you do have a debunk report from the Farnsworth.
There is a debunk report for the Farnsworth up in the attic. You are supposedly, they say, approximately once a year. I don't know when this once a year is, but approximately once a year, you're supposed to be able to go in to the attic, take a picture out the window where supposedly the shot was fired to kill Jenny Wade. And in that window, you're supposed to see a soldier. Now, this is in the attic. So that's 1, 2, 3rd floor up. But you see a soldier at normal level. And I asked the guy who told me about it, one of the guides, I'm like at this level? And he's like, yeah, go figure. I don't know. I'm like, okay. So I, of course, took pictures And in some of my pictures, you can see not the soldier that, is some apparition, but the entire attic reflected behind you. And all of the actors or storytellers at the Farnsworth house all dress up in character. And so they dress up as soldiers. The men all dress up as soldiers. The women, they dress up as women in mourning. But that is probably, to me,
Possibly.
They're taking a picture. Now, I haven't seen all the pictures that they have said that these are the soldier. But if I can see the reflection of the whole room, including my soldier guy, what's to say that all those other ones aren't really just a reflection of their guide?
Yeah.
So that's my debunk report for the Farnsworth house.
Was he holding the McDonald's cup?
He was not.
Well, that's our trip to Gettysburg. You guys have anything else you want to add? I know I put this together with basically today. Did I miss anything?
I think it was a great trip. I think that we had an opportunity to test some theories. We validated some claims. We disproved some others. It was, from the paranormal standpoint, I think it was a great trip. From a personal standpoint, be able to just be a part of such a historically important site was amazing. And then to be able to spend a week with friends, camping out and enjoying some bonding and some fellowship. And
No tents this time. I was in a building.
yes. And so the wetter it got, the drier we stayed,
Yeah.
but it was,
And the food was awesome.
Yes.
we just
Awesome food.
had a great time.
So, do we have any questions over there?
We had one that I know of from earlier, and they wanted to know what the best type of audio digital recorder there was. What's the best digital recorder they can get? They're going to head to Gettysburg soon, so they want to get the best
Really?
stuff they can get.
Yes.
Me,
Brand wise? Is that what they were asking? What brand?
That was it.
Yeah.
What kind of digital recorder should I get?
you're going to get different answers from
Yeah.
everybody every time. I
I'll
mean,
tell you what, here's the best, okay? Because we have recorders that range from high end, could hear a
Several
flea
$100 versions?
fart to recorders that listen real time to recorders that you can put in your pocket.
Right.
Now, if you're going to Gettysburg, I highly recommend a recorder that you can put in your pocket, something small, because you're going to be doing a lot of walking, a lot of traveling. You're carrying your camera with you, all that other stuff. And actually, I picked up a recorder, another one before we left that was smaller instead, because I normally carry a big, heavy duty one, and it's an Olympus. I think Mike and we have Olympus too. Mary Ann
I have
carries a Sony. But make sure, this is the mistake that I made.
Yes.
Make sure that you're able to hook that recorder up to the computer. Okay. If you go to Walmart and you buy their low end recorder, Olympus recorder, that's what I did, because I have other recorders. I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I just wanted something small I could put in my pocket. I didn't look at the packaging or anything because it just made sense. Everything's digital. You should be able to hook it up to your computer. I recorded 30 plus EVP sessions.
37 sessions.
Yeah. And you can't hook that recorder up to the computer. So I had to take and dump them to another recorder, which took real time, all that recording. And it was, if I would have spent $10 more and read the packaging, I wouldn't have that problem. So
yep, get
small, able to hook to the computer. Brand Olympus is good. Sony's good. Get a name brand computer,
Yeah.
or not computer, name brand recorder.
Yeah.
They do have off brands. I haven't tried them, so I can't recommend or not recommend them.
But if you get a Sony or an Olympus, you're going to be good.
Yeah, you're getting what you pay for. So, what was the other one? You already answered it.
The other question that came in was about the orphanage and what it was actually originally started for, and we kind of talked about that in the session where we said it was for the soldiers,
I
orphans,
think it was where were the mothers.
But they also, it was a two-part question, and the second part of it was where were the mothers, and a lot of times they didn't have the ability to pay to keep their children. I'm sure it wrenched their souls. I mean, they lost their spouse, now they're losing their kid, but at least there was some
remember
place
too, this
for
was
them.
in 1863, so back then there were not a lot of now don't get crazy, but this is reality. There were not a lot of women landowners. They were, the men owned the land, they owned the homestead, they owned the property. And when these soldiers went off to war, they may not have had a will that it went to the female if something happened. So they may have lost their homes.
Right.
Had no place to live. Couldn't
And a
take
lot
care
of
of the
times
kids,
that if
kind
they
of thing.
couldn't
So,
find a new husband to take them in.
right.
And it was only a small village of 2,500 people back in, and the farm's destroyed, the crops are gone. The animals
Well, look
are
at
gone.
the story of the cemetery. I mean, she was homeless basically, but still had to perform
She
the job.
still had walls.
Walls, but no food or belongings. And that one picture, they had to almost rebuild the arch. So,
I have a couple things to add. When you asked about how everybody enjoyed the trip,
Okay.
Laura said she had a great time with each and every one. I had to go. I'm glad I got to go with all you. You are such great friends and made a lot of new family members. Now they are my Boo family.
Aw, the Boo family.
That's us, the Boo family.
Andrea, I'm very thankful we got the chance to go together as a group. Despite the hiccup at the beginning, we had a wonderful time. And the experience was like no other with friends who are more like family, but better.
awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. So, okay, Laura and Andrea didn't have questions, so we have to weed them out.
Right?
Those other two questions, that was from the same person? I
It
would
was.
assume?
Yes.
Who was
Karen C.
Karen C. Okay.
So, our winner.
So Karen C., you're the winner of our T-shirt.
Yay!
Yeah.
Congratulations!
So here's what I need you to do, Karen. I hope you pop back on and see this. I think you said that you were fans on Facebook.
Mhm.
What I want you to do, so I know I have the right person, I want you to send an email to info, I-N-F-O, at darkshadowghosttours.com. Okay? That's the domain name, Dark Shadow Ghost Tours. Just put info at on the front of it. Send an email with your address and your shirt size, and when we get these shirts in production, which hopefully will be shortly, we're going to send you one. And
All right.
thank you for asking your question.
Yeah, they
Yes.
were great questions, by the way.
Yes.
I know we drew this out a long time, but you know what? I feel personally that you need to know the history of these locations before you go into them. A lot of people like to go in blind. That's okay. But it's also cool to have this platform to put stuff out there for the younger generation so they know what's out there and kind of, like we talked about Sachs Bridge, those kids that were out there probably don't know the history of it. And I can make those statements because I work in education and I see what's going on. And it's very important that the youth coming up knows the history of this nation and why we need to be proud of it.
Mhm.
So, you guys have any closing remarks?
And it was a 5-day investigation.
Absolutely. And then we came back and did another investigation.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not going to stop.
No.
We're going to keep going. In 2 weeks, you can join us actually for another episode of After Tour where we're going to do a wrap up of the old Stagecoach Inn. If you guys joined us on that virtual ghost hunt, hopefully
Monday
by then
night.
we're going to have some evidence that we could talk about, and we'll talk about our investigation we had there last Monday night. It's still out there. You can
Right.
still take part in it. Watch the DVRs. If you see anything, leave a comment on our YouTube channel. I know the chat will be shut off. And the same with this one. If you have any comments, please leave them. We love to hear the feedback. Now, also, if you would like to see a topic for us to talk about, we're going to start slowing down. We're not done for the summer. We've got to find some place to go investigate. But we're going to start coming into
Dinner season.
Our Halloween party, bash, whatever we're going to do. But investigating as it starts to get, it's inevitable. It's going to start getting cold. I think I saw a post on Facebook, 16 weeks. Was
Yeah.
that you who posted that?
No, it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
me.
No, it's Mike.
Oh.
And a girl.
Yeah.
We're fair weathered investigators.
Yeah.
We
did
went out last November, and
Not
let me
again.
tell you, it was freezing. I was so cold. It was the weekend of Thanksgiving. It was just unbearably cold. I could not stand it. I was excited to go home that night. And
Yeah,
I
it was
usually am raring to go in an investigation because I want to find that evidence. That's what I want. I want
It's
the hard
so hard
evidence.
during the winter because we're all just chomping at the bit to get out to do something. But that was cold.
It
That
was cold.
we won't do that again. We'll just sit here and do more shows.
And they'll tell us where we can go or
Absolutely.
what we can talk about.
Absolutely. So please leave us your comments. Give us your feedback. Join us on the next episode of Dark Shadow Ghost Tours After Tour, where we're talking about the old Stagecoach Inn.
Right.
Right.
On to more adventures. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks.
see you
See you
next
next time.
Happy hunting.